Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto died and reborn in My Little Pony universe part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Though support and follow the Dragons for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. O land of the rising sun, land of the leaves, O land of nature. Why did this happen? Please don't let this situation get any worse for our friendly neighborhood knucklehead, Naruto. Our orange and black jacketed, blonde genin was currently slamming his head into a nearby wooden fence repeatedly. As he continued to bore his way into the wood, he started to wonder why he was even doing so in the first place. He stopped momentarily to ponder this, rubbing his now throbbing forehead under his Konoha headband. His thoughts, still a tangled mess, unraveled temporarily to inform him of just why he was assaulting the fence. It involved him banging his head repeatedly once again with a renewed vigor as he recalled the events. It wasn't that long ago, 15 minutes to be exact. It was mid-afternoon in the breezy town of Konohagakure, and Naruto had a plan. A prank. A devious excuse to laugh his ass off. He had just gotten back from a rescue mission involving Gaara and needed a way to rid himself of stress. What better way to kill said stress and time between missions than to make someone's life a living pain for a few minutes? It was a simple plan really. Naruto was out in an alleyway, a path frequently taken when one needed to go to the Hokage Tower. He had a cardboard box on his head emblazoned with "Please open me" on the front in big bold kanji and a couple of innocent looking pellets. Why was the cardboard box on his head? It could have been because he wanted to be stealthy. It could have been because he could talk to boxes in some dead language that only he knew. Or he was just an idiot to begin with. Regardless, Naruto took the box off his head and set it upright with the pellet still in his hand. He brought the pellets into the sunlight in order to inspect his guaranteed success of laughing the day away. A red and blue pellet, each polished to a glossy finish, were necessary for this devious prank to work. "Ain't pellets," Naruto muttered mostly to himself, "this is going to be funny as hell." Naruto took a deep breath and began to push some of his chakra into his right hand, the one holding the pellets. As he infused the pellets with some of his chakra, he immediately placed them inside the box and closed it up, making sure no sunlight would reach inside, unless someone were to open it of course. As Naruto looked around for anybody walking up the alley, he set the box in the middle of the road, being careful as to not agitate the contents any further. Then, he dashed behind a nearby trash can, giggling like a little schoolgirl. 5 minutes had passed, and not a single person had come down the alley. Not a soul, not a creature, not a single one. Naruto peeked out from behind the trash can. No footsteps, no whistling, no talking, just utter silence. Naruto crossed his arms, thinking. I could have sworn this was the busiest road. It's the fastest way to the tower, right? He questioned himself. As he began to ponder just how strange this was, he heard footsteps approaching. He dove back down behind the trash can more out of reflex than anything else. He didn't even see who was coming up the road, but he couldn't peek out and risk being seen. He had put more time into this prank than any other before, and he wasn't about to blow it. Naruto was silently giggling to himself, waiting for the inevitable. The footsteps grew ever closer. They immediately stopped, maybe no more than 10 feet away. Naruto assumed that whoever it was just stumbled across his present. Hook, line, and sinker. Hehe, Naruto said to himself quietly. His face sported a devilish grin of delight. What he heard next took that grin right off his face and uppercut it straight off into next year. Oh my. What's this box doing here? I wonder what's inside, said a familiar feminine voice. Naruto swallowed his Adam's apple, forcing its way down into his chest, knowing who that voice belonged to. Immediately, he jumped out from behind his hiding place wide-eyed, watching a familiar raven-haired girl with white pupils crouch over the box. The girl already had one of her hands spreading open the folds of the box when Naruto finally found his voice. Hinata, don't op. But it was too late. As soon as she opened up the flaps completely and looked up, the box exploded. Blue and red smoke flooded the area after the explosion, billowing out from where the box and Hinata had been. The smoke slowly started to dissipate after a few short seconds, which seemed to last an eternity for Naruto until Hinata came into view. The look on her face was that of an injured puppy. Mouth agape and eyes wide open in blatant shock. She stood there with blue and red markings all over her clothes, her face, and even her hair, creating what seemed like an art experiment gone wrong. Hinata looked at her hands, shaking as the red and blue paint dripped off her and mixed together into a purple concoction. Naruto took a step forward towards Hinata, trying to utter something, anything, but couldn't bring himself to. Hinata slowly looked up towards Naruto, eyes twitching on the brink of tears as she slowly backed away. Step by step, she backed away, each step bringing her closer to a full breakdown until the third step back. With tears coming out of her eyes, she turned around and ran away. Naruto took another step forward, raising his hand in front of him, as if he was about to grab something. "Oh oi. Hinata. Wait. This is all a big misunderstanding," Naruto shouted. But his words fell on deaf ears as she rounded the corner and fell out of his line of sight. His shoulders slumped down as he turned to orient himself to the wooden fence running along the alleyway and began smacking his head into it over and over again. Which brings us back to where Naruto is now, contemplating just why he went ahead with this prank to begin with. A good prank is fine once in a while, but if it involves your dear and trusted friends, especially someone as sensitive as Hinata, it turns into a very cruel joke. Many thoughts were running through Naruto's thick skull as he kept running through the situation repeatedly. Why did I do that just now? Can I reverse it? Why can't anyone take a joke and forgive you? The fight between the fence and the hard head wasn't making any notable progress. Would Hinata hate him after this stupid prank? Why didn't he chase after Hinata after she ran off crying? Was it because he didn't want to rub salt in an open wound? Or is it because he didn't want to make it worse with excuses that she wouldn't believe? Several similar thoughts flooded his mind, but none of them gave him an answer. As he kept up the valiant effort against the fence, a man walked by, sporting a straw Japanese hat that kept his entire head out of the sun and wearing nothing but a black and silver Japanese robe. Attached to his belt was an assortment of small oddities, such as a couple of brown pouches, each a different size, a couple of bottles of strange liquid, and even an assortment of small needles. The man seemed to have long black hair, wrapped in a ponytail, as well as the face of an innocent and kind man. He saw the young blonde banging his head over and over into the fence, muttering how he's hated and unwanted. He raised his brow and walked up behind the kid. "You'll get brain damage if you keep that up, young one," the ponytail man said. Naruto stopped banging his head against the wall and turned around quickly, flinching when he saw a man standing no less than a foot away from him. The blonde took a deep breath, leaned against the small cratered wall, and stared back at him. "Maybe I should get it after what I did. What I did was unforgivable." "So you accidentally pranked a close friend of yours, I'm starting to understand why you were leaving a dent in that wall." The man felt sorry for the way Naruto was treating himself earlier, so he took Naruto to Ichiraku's. Ichiraku's ramen, as Naruto had claimed, was the best place in all of Konohagakure, no, the world, for ramen. As Naruto stuffed his face, he nodded a couple of times towards the man. "If painful," Naruto said with his mouth full, splattering beef broth and noodles across the table. The man blinked. A bead of sweat made its way down his face before he snapped out of his stupor. "Swallow your food please." "That's just plain rude," the man said as Naruto swallowed the face full of food in just one gulp. "You're a prankster?" the man asked. Naruto simply nodded as he faked a smile. "The best prankster in all of Konoha. No one can match my talents," he said proudly. Naruto paused, suddenly realizing he was both talking and eating with some foreign stranger. Better yet, he didn't even know his name. "I'm Naruto by the way. What's yours?" The man only smirked at Naruto's sudden urge to be courteous. He only shrugged in response. "Yajirobe. Samurai by name, an alchemist by trade," Yajirobe said proudly to Naruto. Naruto tilted his head at the last title he called himself, alchemist. Yajirobe nodded, tilting his straw hat forward. "Indeed, an alchemist, a person who can create tonics, remedies, or, as you folk commonly say, people who can turn lead into gold." Yajirobe broke out into a full-bodied laugh at the last comment he made. Of course, turning lead into gold is a bit of a ridiculous fairy tale, since it isn't even possible. Naruto oohed to the small but simple explanation of what an alchemist was. The small bottles of liquid on Yajirobe's belt caught his eye, curious about what they contained. "An alchemist, huh? So you can create things like food pellets and soldier pills or something?" Yajirobe only laughed at Naruto's comment. "Something like that. Alchemy can be used in all sorts of ways, it's nearly endless," he said with an arm leaning on the table, smiling at Naruto. "You could create a tonic to boost your strength, a tonic to make you immune to disease, or even create an explosive that can burst into flames upon impact. Alchemists have been around for centuries, my friend. Most of the things you take for granted were created and improved upon by others like me." The more Yajirobe explained to Naruto about his profession, the more he became curious about this alchemist thing. "Can it be used for pranks?" Naruto asked. Once again the man broke out into a laugh. "I knew you were going to say that, haha." Yajirobe took a few ryo out of his pocket and placed them on the table to pay the bill. Yajirobe stood up from the table and motioned for Naruto to follow. I shall explain more as we walk. I have nothing else to do at the moment." Naruto got up with Yajirobe and began his trek towards the crowded marketplace. Several people rushed by, going from one place to another, while merchants kept advertising how their goods are better and more reasonably priced than others. It was noisy, but he could still hear Yajirobe speak clearly. "Like I said, it can be used for numerous things, including pranks. Fire bombs, for example, can be multi-purposed. You could even make something that spouts out tar, mud, or even water, but then again, water in a bottle would just have the same effect as regular old water. Haha, the joke fell a little flat for Naruto, since it didn't really make that much sense. Yajirobe looked at Naruto for a moment, forcing a cough before continuing. So in short, yes. Alchemy can be used for pranks, or to help for the greater good, haha. Naruto couldn't help but smile at Yajirobe's words. Learning alchemy is the only thing Naruto wanted to think about right now. Ooh. Can you teach me how to use alchemy? Naruto said while hopping up and down like a little schoolgirl. Yajirobe stopped, shaking his head and dashing Naruto's high hopes. A smile graced Yajirobe's face, and he tousled up the blonde's messed up hair some more. I'm only here in Konoha for one more day. However, you should read up on alchemy if you wish to learn. It is not that difficult, and I'm sure you'll have a knack for it, if he said as he placed a finger on Naruto's headband. You have the persistence, patience, and motivation for it. You seem to have everything nailed down but the patience aspect. Just remember that good things come to those who wait. He stressed the last word by flicking Naruto's headband. Naruto immediately nodded, more out of reflex than complete understanding. Alchemy, the art of turning lead into gold, of combining ingredients or other such objects into one entity. It sounded magical and endless. Yajirobe couldn't help but laugh once more at Naruto's look of bewilderment and excitement. He took a small flask, in the shape of a small beaker, from his belt and grabbed a bigger bottle full of brown liquid from his carrying sack. Naruto raised an eyebrow at what he was doing, but the samurai alchemist only smiled in reply. I'd like to give you a parting gift. A memento, if you will, of this conversation we've had. He poured what was in the bottle into the beaker, like a faucet filling up a small cup, which is a potion that I've used countless times before for all those sleepless nights. It's a vitamin potion. Drink it before you sleep tonight. It'll give you the necessary nutrients and vitamins you need for a young man like yourself to stay healthy. It will even boost your mental prowess overnight, allowing you to think harder, but much more easily and quickly. I take it every day, and it's made me into what I am now, Yajirobe said with a smile and a twitch of the brow. Naruto went wide-eyed at his explanation and stared at the brown liquid inside the beaker. He couldn't believe what his ears were telling him. A potion could make him faster, stronger, and better than ever before, with almost no effort at his part. The thoughts of his future self plastered a grin all over his face. He looked back at Yajirobe in awe. Wow, Yajirobe, are you sure this must have taken a long time to create? Yajirobe gave a small chuckle at Naruto's response. The tonic is easy to make, and it's my own special recipe. Don't worry about it. I've got a big bottle full of it, so I'm in no danger of running out anytime soon, Yajirobe said with a smile. He furrowed his brow at the setting sun, looking back at Naruto with his smile still. My, time flies when you're walking around town, it seems, he said as he crossed his arms, with his eyes closed as he nodded. He opened them once more and said, it seems our time was short but pleasant at that. I will be departing at first light tomorrow. Naruto looked up with a pair of puppy dog eyes towards Yajirobe. But Yajirobe. Can't you stay in town for at least a couple more days? Yajirobe only shook his head at this comment, causing Naruto to frown. Then the samurai patted Naruto on the head once more. I hope to see you tomorrow then, Jana. Late at night. The moon cast its radiance all over Konoha, bathing the town in silver moonlight as the inhabitants slept, dreaming peaceful dreams. Some used the night to their advantage. To kill people in their sleep or go out and party all night long or stand guard and watch over towns to make sure that the peace is not disturbed. Naruto sat on his bed cross-legged, holding the bottle that Yajirobe handed him not long ago. He wore his usual nighttime pajamas with his signature black hat. The brown liquid inside sloshed around as he tilted the bottle in the moonlight coming through the window. It absorbed the light completely like a sponge, making it look even darker than it did before. Some kind of vitamin and mental prowess increased in Gamabab, he said with one hand on his chin, looking at the contents. Alchemist sounds so amazing, I wonder if I could somehow learn it myself. All of the pranks I'd be able to pull. He could imagine it now. A concoction that could turn people into chickens or cows or even a bowl of ramen if he so chose. But those kinds of thoughts he shook out of his head with a smirk and giggle. Yeah, right. As if alchemy could go that far. I really doubt it, but the thought still lingered in his head. So many possibilities, so many new prospects. He couldn't wait to know more. His eyelids became almost unbearably heavy as his fatigue began to catch up. A sideways glance at his bedside clock confirmed that it was indeed late. He shut the light off, plunging the room into semi-darkness, moonlight breaking up the darkness lightly. Naruto looked at the liquid inside the bottle once more, as if staring down an endless abyss of darkness. He shrugs to himself, popping the top off at the same time. The potion may have looked bland, but it sure didn't smell like it. But Kami, this stuff reeks. Naruto said out loud. It seems that Yajirobe may have left out a major detail concerning the smell or heck, maybe even what it tastes like. Why didn't he tell me this stuff would smell bad? Geez, do I really have to drink this? Naruto pondered this for a moment as he gave another whiff of the stuff. Well, it certainly didn't smell any better than before. But then again, some say the taste is different from the smell. He could just be exaggerating. Maybe it tasted like strawberries or melons or maybe even pork ramen. His mouth twitched. That last line of thought made the mystery drink more appealing despite the smell. In the end, he manned up. Down the hatch. Placing his lips on the tip of the bottle, Naruto tipped the bottle up and slowly started to consume the brownish liquid, pinching his nose to keep the awful smell out. He blinked. It didn't taste that bad actually. It was almost like eating a potato, just in a liquefied form. A few seconds later, the entire bottle was drained and he threw it into the nearby trash bin. The smell still lingered, but at least it did taste better than it smelled. Feeling a bit satisfied it didn't make him throw up, he leapt into bed, the prospects of tomorrow all the brighter. 15 minutes later. Naruto woke up in a cold sweat. His throat was on fire. His stomach was doing belly flops in a pool of magma and his entire body ached in pain. Spasms rocked his entire body, pain tearing at every single molecule in his body both inside and out. Breathing was a whole other problem as he gripped his neck with his shaking hand, trying to get any air into his lungs. His heart thumped in his chest rapidly as his face lost color just as quickly. Even when he was experiencing an almost immeasurable amount of pain, his mind was racing through possible avenues of what in the world may be causing this. He rolled off the bed and onto the floor, curling into a ball, trying to fight through the pain. Naruto wheezed. Maybe it was something he ate. He opened his mouth and jabbed a finger at his tonsil, before bending over and vomiting all over the wooden floorboards. One thing stood out as he emptied his stomach. Blood. That's when he knew it. He was dying. He didn't know why, but he was dying. He prayed that the fox inside his body would heal whatever was trying to kill him, however, the fox didn't seem to be helping at all. He couldn't even sense the fox or even hear anything. The room started to sway and spin in nauseating circles even though he wasn't moving. Even his arms and legs were starting to feel limp and cold. Naruto's movement slowed to a crawl. He couldn't move his legs anymore. His head was tilted away from the bed, looking out over the rest of his room. His Konoha forehead protector lay on the table, facing him, as if scolding him for doing something so rash and stupid. Naruto was laid out on the hardwood floor, limbs and organs no longer responsive, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. Naruto was dead. Evil laughter could be heard in the distance. What Naruto's lifeless corpse didn't know was that there was a spectator in his midst, watching everything that happened. A man on a nearby rooftop sat quietly as he twiddled his fingers. Foolish nine-tailed fox, I forgot to tell you one last thing about alchemy. The man in robes began as he stood up onto his 2 feet. Is that it can also create the deadliest poisons known to man. He couldn't help but widely grin at his accomplishment, disappearing off into the night. It was very cold. It felt like that of a blustery winter night. It went straight through your clothes and chilled you to the very bones. That's all he could feel. Naruto could feel himself floating. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, but merely floated in the endless abyss. He could still think, but all that came to mind was the cold. The damnable cold. All he knew was that he was floating in nothingness. He didn't care. Or at least, he couldn't, with all his feelings sucked away from him. He was a complete and utter nothing. At least, that's what he assumed until he stopped floating and fell onto something really hard. Suddenly, Naruto could think, feel, and even see. But he couldn't see himself. Try as he might, he couldn't see any limb or part of his body. All he could see was a trail of white, where his feet should be. Naruto was confused at this turn of events. Where was he? Then, something happened. A brief flash of shadowy light exploded in front of Naruto. He couldn't squint, for he had no eyes, or eyelids for that matter. He just simply took in the sight for what it was, a black-robed thing. His robes were torn from place to place, with a black hood covering his face entirely. Bony fingers, bony feet, and a huge tome rested in his bony hands. If Naruto could piss himself in horror, he would, but he was still nothing but a bunch of white smoke. Stupid smoke. The bony, robed figure slowly walked towards Naruto, taking his book out from under his arm. He opened it absently, as if this was just a normal part of his day, and mumbled quietly to himself. Naruto letter N him, yes, here we go. The bony figure said in a deep dark baritone voice. It would shake anyone to the bone, ba dum bum ching, if one would ever hear it. He pointed his right index finger at a seemingly random spot inside his book. Page 490,558,693,948,586. Naruto Uzumaki, age 16 or was it 17? HRM, damn accountants, using erasers and such to change one's information, the figure muttered to himself. They don't make my job easy anymore like it was ages ago, so many deaths, yet it was much more efficient HRM. Naruto could only stand there as the bony man looked up the information in his dusty old tome. The bony man only shrugged in frustration. Ah, well, whatever. How you died is what mattered, anyway. The words hit Naruto like a sledgehammer to the nuts. Died. Him, dead. Naruto was dead. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to yell out in agony on how much bullshit it was, but he couldn't make a peep. The bony man looked up from his book, seeing the white figure of Naruto shift from side to side, as if it was having an angry spasm. The bony man only shook his head. Yes, you're dead. Like millions of others have realized. Get used to it. I'm tired of seeing you pesky souls throw such a fit about it. It's not that bad, honestly. Especially when I, Death himself, have to take care of you piles of smoke and souls, yet it only makes my job harder with the higher-ups, the bastard said Death as he scratches his head with a bony-tipped finger. Now, sit still so we can confirm your cause of death. Naruto still couldn't believe it. He was dead and the Grim Reaper himself, aka Death, is looking up his information. Is this what happens to people who die? They appear in a sea of darkness and nothing, and then get looked up like it's some damn bank. The fact that he was a soul didn't help matters either. He had so much to live for. Hinata, Kakashi, the old bat of a Hokage. He was dead, and he probably would never see them again. Ah, yes, your cause of death. Death said out loud. Naruto snapped out of his reverie, bringing his full attention, grudgingly, to Death. Well now. Seems like you died of major poisoning to the stomach and heart. Good choice. At least in terms of a slow and painful death. You've even had some previous near-death experiences. Too very interesting. Death closed his book with a sharp thump and looked at Naruto's soul. Very foolish of you to drink something that could kill you. I mean, what were you thinking? Something so vile and disgusting looking, and yet, you didn't even think twice about it. When I was your age, back when cavemen and dinosaurs existed, I know there was. Naruto couldn't hear him anymore. He turned him out to try and sift through his own memories. It came back to him now. Pain. He was writhing in pain on his hardwood floor, and the cause had to be that vitamin thingamabob the alchemist gave him. How could he have been so foolish? Why wasn't he suspicious of him from the start? But did it even matter anymore? Yes and no, he wanted revenge, but since he was dead, there wasn't any point. And that's how I ended up getting a horse and a caveman hitched. It was an experience that was insulting, and a mental image I'll never be able to erase from my skull. I hope you're happy with the story, cause I'm not. Naruto stared at Death again, his attention finally gravitating back towards the Reaper. Death tilted his head before shaking it in disappointment. Not listening, Well, anyway, you're in purgatory right now. I hope you're happy, because people that normally die get sent straight to heaven or hell immediately. No second chances. However, Death said, walking towards Naruto's soul. There are special cases. Ones that have proven themselves worthy, one way or another, he said as he poked Naruto's soul where his heart would be. Naruto felt nothing. What? Still not simple enough to understand. Kids these days. Death bent down to eye level, at least where the eyes would have been, before continuing, there's a chance for you to live again. A reincarnation, if you will. This brought Naruto's attention fully to Death. A way to be alive again. There was such an option. If Naruto still had feelings and limbs, he would jump for joy. Of course, he could do no such thing. He settled for shifting his corporeal body side to side. Death nodded. Yep. There is a way just for someone as special as you. You have to complete 2 tasks. The first task is probably the hardest out of the 2. I'm warning you now. Be prepared, for there are no second chances. He closed the book, which dissolved into black smoke, leaving his hands together, palms facing each other. He opened them once more like a book, and in its place was an orb of light. It gave off light similar to that of a prism, rainbows dancing inside as if trapped. He closed his left hand, and the ball disappeared into his bony clutch. He placed his hands behind his back and shuffled around a little before bringing both hands back in front, each hand a fist. Pick the correct hand, and you win the lifetime of life, I suppose. Naruto couldn't help but think that the skeleton was a few bones short of an actual skeleton. Death was, literally, gambling with Naruto's ticket out of here. But if it was his chance of being alive again, he would have to play along with it. He didn't have much else to lose except the chance at life again. Naruto's soul shifted from side to side, unsure which hand it was in. He had a 50-50th chance, so it was all a matter of luck. Then again, when was the last time he had a stroke of good luck? The more he stared at the bony hands, the more he couldn't decide. That is, until he saw a small glimmer of light in one of Death's hands. There. That hand. Naruto shifted his soul to the right, trying to sign language Death into choosing the right hand. He looked at his right hand, bringing it up in front of Naruto's soul. You choose this one. Move your soul around if you say yes. Naruto shifted around anxiously, confirming it. Too bad. He opened his hand revealing a small, shiny coin. Not the ball of light, you lose, thanks for playing. Despair. That was what Naruto felt at that very moment. He was tricked. That shimmer was a false lead, playing off his uncertainty perfectly. He lost. Plain and simple. He began to disappear, slowly fading into nothing as the white mist that was his soul dispersed into the surrounding nothingness. But then, he heard something very peculiar. Laughing. Naruto looked up at Death, expecting him to be laughing at his expense. Apparently, he was, but for a different reason. Faha, hoo boy, that gets them souls going every time the all shining the coin trick, that was a good laugh. Needed that, you're gonna be alive no matter what happens anyway, can't let an opportunity like that pass me by, know what I'm saying? Death said with an amused look. Naruto wanted to kill him now. He didn't care. He just wanted to kill him for mocking his very being. However, being a soul, his options were severely limited to that of either bobbing and weaving or standing still. Oh, how he wanted hands and feet just to take care of funny bones. Death stopped joking around and just waved his laughter off. Ooh, okay then. Anyway, I believe it's time to get this underway. Ah, that's right. There's one more loose end. It's about your hotel guest that was inside that swirly stomach thingy. A seal, you humans call it, I believe. Naruto looked back at Death. He knew about the nine-tailed beast. Wait, that's right. If Naruto died, then the nine-tailed beast would be dead as well, because the beast was connected with Naruto to begin with. Right. Well, as you can probably imagine, he's dead. You're dead, so he's dead, as I'm sure you've figured out. His soul went off to some creature hell, or something like that. We, at the Human Embassy of Death Affairs, don't account for creatures. You can see he's not here with you, and things like that. However, Death paused for a moment, summoning that book off his back with a snap of his fingers, before continuing in a merrier tone. It seems that some of his soul has mixed in with yours, which means an essence of him is still inside you somewhere. I do not know the consequences of it still being with you, but I suggest caution, otherwise kid, you're a vacant hotel. You're free. Out of jail, all better in the hospital, no one poking you in the butt with a stick or being someone's sexual SL. He was going on and on and on, trying to describe the situation as much as possible. Naruto just stared at a space above his right shoulder, waiting for him to finally stop. Or a dog on a chain, or a stripper bound by a contract, or a rapist who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, or Death realized he was running his bony jaw off as he listed off so many things by now. He shook his head, clearing his throat to grab Naruto's attention. Anyway, in short, you're your own person now. Naruto felt both happy and sad at the same time. He was finally rid of the fox, but at what cost? His death. Inside the smoke, his soul was trying to reason with itself at 100 miles per hour. While on the outside, he stayed ever vigilant. The ultimate poker face, if you will. Death wrote in his book, filling out the important details that were obvious with his mechanical pen. The pen had a skull on top and had a label on the back of the skull with number 1 Reaper inscribed in a flourish style of handwriting. It was kind of funny how Death would have a personal item like that. With the click of the pen, the tip went back inside, and that was that. He made the book go poof with a snap of his fingers. Have a nice trip in your new life, kid, he said while pulling the lever down. What? Before Naruto could do anything, his world started to swirl in place. The darkness looked like a whirlpool with white mixed in, which slowly developed into the entire light spectrum, from the reddest of reds to the violetest of violet. He felt his mist form gravitate towards the center of the spinning vortex. As his soul was sucked in, the last thing he could remember was his soul shifting and turning, as all the pretty colors made him lose consciousness, or whatever consciousness Naruto even had to begin with. Everything became blank, as all was consumed. Later, in the Everfree Forest. Twilight, why are we in the Everfree Forest? This place gives me the creeps. Because Spike, we need to get a certain kind of mushroom that grows only in this region for Pinkie Pie. But does it have to be somewhere this creepy? And a land with a very loud explosion. The earth shook around a particular purple pony's hooves and her baby dragon's feet, the explosion no more than a few pony lengths in front of her. However, it wasn't just any kind of explosion. It was a big purple puff of smoke and light, expanding out as it dissipated out into the air. Twilight Sparkle, a unicorn, and Spike, the baby dragon, slowly moved towards ground zero cautiously, curiosity dominating any other instinct. Twilight, what was that? It looked really dangerous. Spike yelled as he tried to keep Twilight between him and the direction the blast came from. I don't know, Spike, but we need to check it out. I don't know, I'd rather go home. Spike lost his footing, tripping over something on the forest ground. Twilight turned back to see Spike on the ground, covered in dirt, a very displeased look on his face. He immediately got up and dusted off any dirt that covered him. As she checked to see if he was okay, she spotted a particular object on the ground, the very same object that Spike tripped over. She stepped around Spike to get a better look, absent-mindedly knocking Spike over into the dirt once again. "It's the mushroom we're looking for, Spike. We found it," she exclaimed with a smile. She turned toward Spike, who stared at her in disdain. "What? We found what we were looking for. Next time, watch where you step and you won't get dirt everywhere." Spike opened his mouth in protest before sighing in defeat, not even trying to argue. He grudgingly caught up to Twilight, pressing forward towards the explosion, eagerly wanting to show her up in some way, shape, or form. "I thought he said he wanted to go home, not check out the explosion. I'll never understand him." She sighed and raced off toward him. What they saw near the tree line was a sight to behold. There was still some purple smoke lingering around a certain point. The purple fog lifted slowly until a stallion came into view. The light yellow-colored earth pony stallion had a head full of blonde hair that went all the way down to his ears and all the way down his upper back, a mane, if you will. That wasn't the strange part, though. He wore some rather strange clothing, an orange and black jacket with some swirly patches on the shoulder areas. The stallion mumbled. It was very weak, but that meant one thing. He was alive. Immediately, Twilight checked the mysterious pony, looking for any marks or injuries that might be life-threatening. Thankfully, there were none. The purple unicorn lifted the stallion as gingerly as she could manage off the forest floor using her magic. She brought him close to her side and faced Spike, worry plain on her face. "We have to get him back to Ponyville. Come on, Spike." Naruto was tired, his eyelids felt heavy, and his entire mind, his body, even his own sleeping, it all felt different. Not in the wrong kind of way, but just different. All he wanted to do was sleep. But even if he wanted to dive into that slumbering abyss, it wasn't happening. Something kept jabbing him in the side, sharp enough to hurt without piercing. He grudgingly dragged his mind out from under the proverbial blankets and shoved it into gear, yawning at the same time. He opened his eyes, trying to make sense of who or what was taking away from his sleep. Everything in his surroundings looked blurry and vague, like looking into a mirror after a hot shower. Blinking more rapidly, his surroundings became clearer. Bookshelves full of books, and more books. It looked like he was in a study, or maybe a library, or just a storage room. He blinked a few more times, still trying to fully wake himself up when the poking began again. "Hey, you awake, big guy? You alright?" Naruto flinched, not expecting the voice to be inches away from his ear. It sounded childlike. He turned his head towards the voice and froze. Whatever stood next to him was covered in purple scales and had sharp green eyes. Its underbelly, however, was green but still had the telltale scales covering the rest of its body. What seemed to be green fins stuck out at regular intervals, starting from the top of its head, ending at the tip of its tail. A lizard then, Naruto thought, but a weird one at that. Naruto blinked a few times, slightly freaked out by the lizard's appearance, but tried to remain calm, attempting to control his irregular breathing and heart rate. This was not the first time he had talked to sentient animals. "Who are you? Some kind of lizard thing?" Naruto asked. The purple lizard tilted his head, hearing an unknown language. It held its chin, as if in thought, before sitting down next to the bed. "Wait, say that again." "Didn't catch that the first time," the lizard said, cupping an ear with his hand. This time it was Naruto's turn to tilt his head in confusion. What was the lizard saying? He couldn't understand a single word. Not a single one of them was Japanese. Or maybe he's just losing his mind from all that sleep he had. He decided to say something just to make sure. I didn't catch that, what did you say?" Naruto asked. The lizard raised a brow as he just shook his head and crossed his arms. "Oh boy, language barrier," the lizard said. He stood up from Naruto's side. Let's see." The lizard started using his fingers. He pointed at Naruto, then down at the ground below him. Naruto looked at the ground and then looked back up at the lizard. "It's telling me to stay put then," he thought. He hesitantly nodded, hoping that that was what the lizard wanted him to do. It smiled back, revealing 2 rows of razor-sharp white teeth, before running out the door. Naruto just shook his head. Where was he and why did that lizard speak a language he's never heard before? From what he could tell, the lizard couldn't understand him either, so he was in quite a position. He didn't know where he was nor speak the native language. His only form of contact was with that of the purple lizard. He scratched his head in confusion, only to realize his scratch confused him even more. He felt something hard and rough. He paused. He was using his hand, right? He blinked a few times, not wanting to know what was scratching his head, but he needed to. He slowly brought his hand in front of his face, only to see it wasn't a hand, but a round, circular stub. A horse's hoof, to be exact. Naruto raised both his brows as he twisted his hoof around, examining it closely. He brought his other hand up, and it, too, was a hoof. The color in his face slowly drained away as he lifted up the covers to see what else had changed. This was all a trick, some extremely elaborate it had to be. He thought. He was still wearing his jacket, but that was where any familiarity ended. His lower end had also morphed into that of a horse, complete with a fox-like tail, swaying slightly by itself. Getting out of the bed proved to be an intense challenge as he became entangled in the sheets before hitting the floor with a solid thump. Extricating himself from the mess was just as hard due to the lack of fingers or opposable thumbs, but given time, he managed. In the corner of the room stood a tall mirror that was taller than he was. He stumbled over to it before freezing in place. "What the hell is this?" he blurted out, shocked beyond all belief. He was a freaking horse. "What do you mean you can't understand him, Spike?" "All ponies speak Eekish," Twilight Sparkle asked, slightly peeved. She was busy reading a book before her assistant barreled into her room, interrupting the peaceful quiet she was thoroughly enjoying. Then again, she did ask him to let him know when their mystery pony awoke. "No, not a word, he keeps saying a bunch of gibberish that I've never heard before," Spike said, scratching his head. "It's really weird, I never heard anything like it." "Well, what did he say?" He said something like Nandado and Naniga. It sounds like a sandwich or something." "I don't know." Twilight Sparkle closed her book and sighed. None of those words sounded familiar to her either. It was a long trek finding the mushroom for Pinkie Pie, and then, to top it all off, she found a mysterious earth pony at the entrance to the Everfree. What piqued her interest was just why in Equestria would a pony be hanging around the Everfree forest to begin with? Dangerous monsters lurked just within its borders. The situation was bizarre enough until her friends decided to pay her a visit after hearing about how she was dragging an unconscious pony through town. She shooed them all away, stating that she had this situation under control and that she just needed to talk with the strange pony. Now, here she was, babysitting a pony she didn't know, or at least Spike was wanting to know just who he was and why he was next to the forest. She took the book off the table using her magic, placing it back in its proper place among the bookshelves before getting to her hooves. "Let's see if I can figure out what he's saying." Naruto went back to the bed, still stumbling over his new pair of legs before laying back down. Not even 10 minutes had passed since he came, and he was already tired. As he contemplated his next move, he heard footsteps coming from the doorway. He sat up, hoping whoever came through could explain what was going on. Was it the lizard? No, the footsteps were too heavy to be that small. A purple horse with a beautiful purple mane walked through the open doorway. Even her eyes were purple. What seemed to be a horn extended out from her forehead, at least he assumed it was a girl, judging from the color palette and the curves of its face, and on her butt was a tattoo of a 5-pointed star. 2 streaks of color ran down the center of her hair and continued down the tail, one red and the other a slightly lighter shade of purple. What happened next almost made him jump out the window. "Can you understand me?" It spoke. The horse thing spoke. He didn't understand a word, but it spoke. He stared blankly at the purple horse, tilting his head at the same time. "You can't understand me, can you, horse, Thingy?" As she heard the yellow pony speak, she hung her head. "You're right, Spike, I can't understand him either." "What should we do, Twilight?" "Maybe." Twilight started to think. There had to be some way to convey herself to the pony in front of her. If words wouldn't work, what else would? Something tugged at the recesses of her mind, struggling to get out into the light. Of course. She remembered reading a book about first contact between the Griffin Kingdom and Equestria a few weeks ago. Princess Celestia herself figured out how to communicate with other sentient species that spoke different languages using a modified telepathy spell. "Hey Spike, could you grab that book on Pony Griffin history? I know I left it somewhere in my study," she yelled down the staircase. An affirmative grunt was heard before, moments later, Spike trudged into the room, carrying the book in question. She grabbed the book using her magic, sending Spike sprawling onto the floor, clearly not expecting such a rapid exchange. Still nonplussed, he muttered to himself as he walked back downstairs, presumably to finish his daily chores. She opened the book, scanning for the pages detailing the spell, before stopping at a seemingly random section. A few seconds later she had the basics of the spell memorized and ready to use. "It's alright, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to see if I can read your thoughts." That's all. Twilight's horn shined with magic as she brought it up towards Naruto's forehead. Naruto didn't shy away, now staring avidly at the shining horn. With a small jolt, her horn touched his forehead, sending a small shock through his body, giving him a slight headache. Twilight closed her eyes, focusing more magic into the spell, trying to probe Naruto's head for any way to communicate. Naruto was a bit scared. Whatever she was doing, something felt off. Almost like an itch on the nape of his neck, or that eerie feeling when you think you're not alone in an empty room. "Can you hear me?" Naruto blinked, his eyes now the size of saucers. "What was that?" "I said, can you hear me? Can you understand me? I'm trying to talk to you through my thoughts." Whoever was speaking, it still didn't make a lick of sense. Now he was just plain aggravated. The headache was becoming more painful as each second ticked by, and he was still stuck at square one. It was the purple horses doing with that stupid shiny horn, he thought to himself. He lifted his front leg, shoving the horse away from his head. That's when it happened. As he distanced his forehead from the tip of her horn, a bright purple line of something was attached to either end. Before he could think about it even more, Twilight opened her eyes in shock, the one solid purple beam of light changing into a bubbling red. The beam of light slowly collapsed in on itself. Then it exploded. The house rocked slightly as the small explosion took place in the library, filling it with red smoke and sending them both into coughing fits. Naruto tried to speak, coughing all the while. Cough, what the heck just happened? Cough, you darn horse, Naruto said before stopping himself. Something was off. Did he just speak differently? But it sounded all the same to him. Even Twilight tried to speak through the smoke. Spike, who are you calling cough a darn horse? Twilight said in the smoke. Spike ran in through the doorway, seemingly unaffected by the smoke, worry written all over his face. Twilight. Are you okay? I didn't call you a darn horse, said Spike, now slightly confused. As the smoke cleared up and the coughing fit stopped, he could see both of them, wondering what just happened. Naruto actually understood what they just said. His mouth felt different, but he could understand what he was saying too. Did that freak accident have something to do with it? Hey, I can understand you. Naruto said gleefully. Twilight and Spike went wide-eyed as they saw and heard Naruto talk. I can understand you too. Twilight said with a smile. Me too. Spike said. But how? What was that weird glowy thing you just did to me? I couldn't understand you before. Naruto asked, curious. Neither could we. Twilight said. So how? I don't know, she said with a frown. I was trying to read your thoughts, so maybe I could find some way to understand you, but then something interrupted the flow. She trailed off into incoherent mumbling. She didn't know what happened nor could she explain it. Maybe your spell backfired, Twilight, said Spike. No. It couldn't have been, I had it right. Twilight slumped onto the floor, feeling a bit ashamed and refusing to believe it had backfired. She always thought her magic was perfect to the T, but that was just wishful thinking at best. Then Naruto spoke up. If you ask me, he sat up onto his haunches, both forelegs behind his head. I think that mistake was a rather good one. Now we can all understand each other. I mean, what more could you want? Twilight lifted her head up and stared back at Naruto. He sported a magnificent grin, rivaling that of Pinkie Pie. She found herself smiling back. Really? Believe it? Twilight shook her head, a blush slowly invading her cheeks. Well, thanks, I guess. It all worked out after all. Naruto nodded, satisfied that she wasn't sad anymore. One crying girl was enough. I do have one question though. Twilight looked back, brow raised. What is it? The blonde pony scratched his head with his own hoof, still trying to get used to the odd feeling of no fingers. Where am I? Well, you're in my house, the library section, to be more precise. You know, it's full of books, novels, and poetry amongst other things. I mean, where else could you be? Twilight giggled. Naruto scratched his head with a hoof. He paused, bringing it back down in front of his face to get a good long look at it. The feeling still threw him off. It made him nervous. So, he was in the library. Made sense, but that wasn't what he wanted to know. Actually, that's not what I meant. What was your name again? Naruto asked, slightly embarrassed. Twilight smiled. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't even introduced myself yet. I'm Twilight Sparkle, she said as she put a hoof on the lizard's head, and while we're on introductions, this here is Spike, my #1 assistant. Her gentle patting evolved into a small noogie on the purple lizard's head, which he batted off almost instantly, looking slightly aggravated. Hey, I'm not just some assistant, I'm a handsome dragon who gets all the ladies. There was a brief silence as Naruto stared at the purple dragon, a single sweat drop rolling down his face. Did he just call himself a dragon? He asked himself. Naruto merely shook his head, trying to get his brain back on track. I'm, Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you, I think. He nervously stated. What a weird name, he thought. Spike sounded normal enough, but Twilight Sparkle. Was that her first name or was that a combination of the two? He didn't know. Twilight wrinkled her brow. Naru, Twilight enunciated, trying to sound out the odd name. That is a rather strange name. Sorry, but I've never heard of such a name or pronunciation before. Yeah, I guess everyone finds my name a bit strange. He never understood why his name sounded strange to everyone he met. Maybe she just thought the pronunciation was weird. He just shrugged. It's my name, though, so. Oh, of course. Don't take it the wrong way, I just. No, of course not. Another awkward silence. That is, until Spike spoke up, tugging on Twilight's mane. Why are you so quiet, Twilight? I thought you'd be bombarding him with questions by now, Spike whispered, glancing back at the orange pony. I'm thinking, Spike. It's not often we have a foreign pony over for a chat, Twilight whispered back. Naruto tried to speak up. He still had questions that needed answers, and the sooner he got them, the better. Yes, Naruto, right. Yeah, just exactly where are we? What country am I in? What city is this? Where's the nearest ramen shop? You know, the important things. Twilight looked at Naruto with a mixture of understanding and confusion written on her face, the latter mostly at his last question. She giggled quietly before standing up and motioning towards the door with a hoof. In that case, let's head down to the living area. I'm sure we can find the answers to your questions, either through me, Spike, or the library's books. Besides that, I have a few questions of my own that I need answered. I sense a mutually beneficial trade in the foreseeable future. Naruto couldn't disagree with that. He didn't know where he was nor how he arrived here in the first place. It was a good opportunity. As he followed Twilight down, he kept stumbling, still not used to using 4 legs instead of 2. Twilight raised a brow as she turned her head. You okay? Yeah, just give me a second. I'll have my walking mastered by the end of the day, believe it. Twilight blinked, confused by Naruto's strange answer. In the living area, Naruto sat down on a comfortable 2-seater couch, a brown wooden coffee table in front of him, while Twilight and Spike sat across from him on a similar couch. Spike was leaning back, relaxing, having just gotten back from making tea for every pony. Twilight poured herself some tea before sipping from the teacup gingerly. In Naruto's eyes, she looked sophisticated. The times he dealt with sophisticated people had been far and few between, mostly having dealt with nobles and royalty. The clatter of teaware brought his attention back to the present. So then, Twilight said, putting her front hooves together, what exactly do you want to know, Naruto? This was as good a time as any. There were so many questions that required answers that trying to choose one was like forcing him to say what his favorite flavor of ramen was. Needless to say, that was impossible. However, he needed to start somewhere. Might as well start with something blunt and direct. What am I? There's always a thing when it comes to Naruto's first question. It was always a doozy. Twilight's face stayed neutral, although slight twitching was evident around the eyes and mouth. Eventually, she responded. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not. Believe me, it's going to get weirder, hehe, Naruto said, chuckling awkwardly. He didn't know why he thought that was funny, but he needed to laugh at something. This was all too surreal to be just a dream. Twilight rubbed her chin, before shrugging and continuing on as if nothing had happened. Well, we're all ponies, or if you want it scientifically, equus caballus. There are 3 kinds of ponies. For starters, she said, gesturing in Naruto's direction, are you an earth pony? Out of the 3 species, you are most in tune with the earth and nature. Now I'm a unicorn, as you can see by my horn. Twilight tapped her horn with a hoof a few times for emphasis. You at least know what a unicorn is, right? Naruto nodded. Indeed, he had heard of a unicorn before, at least in fairy tales. He used to sneak into the bookstore now and again to read. That is, unless he was being pelted with rocks and slandered by the other villagers for being a Jinchuriki. Those were dark times for Naruto. Very dark times. I've heard what unicorns are, but I never thought I'd actually get to meet one. Twilight looked slightly taken aback. Wait, you mean you have never, in your entire life, seen an actual unicorn? Naruto nodded in confirmation. Twilight just grew more confused and irritated. You mean, for Celestia's sake, were you born yesterday? Maybe I don't know where I am, what I am, and I certainly didn't have these hooves before, he said, waving a 4-hoof around for emphasis. I had fingers and feet, like that lizard thing has. He pointed at Spike, who straightened up and pounded his chest with a clawed fist. Hey buddy. I ain't no lizard thing. I am a dragon. Try calling me a lizard one more time, I dare ya. Geez, calm down. Big baby, Naruto said with a smirk. Spike simply looked at him with scorn, picking up a piece of random paper and setting it alight in front of Naruto's eyes. Naruto looked at the pile of ash at Spike's feet, gulping, before saying, who can breathe fire at will? Twilight's head spun at Naruto's answers. The only pony who confused her to such a level was Pinkie Pie. Even then, it was Pinkie Pie. Her crazy shenanigans were extremely frustrating to figure out. Even her analytical skills proved useless against the force that was the Pink Menace. She chalked up everything involving the pink pony to just Pinkie Pie being Pinkie Pie. No explanation necessary, but for a rather normal earth pony. She leaned forward, placing her hoof on Naruto's forehead, trying to see if he was delirious from a fever. It made Naruto flinch, apparently not expecting physical contact. Twilight furrowed her brow, trying to feel for anything out of the ordinary. Are you sure you're alright? Fever? Headache? Nausea? No, I'm fine. Naruto waved her hoof off of his forehead, but as he did, he realized what bugged him about the touch. His Konoha forehead protector was missing. He looked around frantically, hoping to see a glimmer of steel anywhere in the room. Twilight, was I wearing a headband with a plate of metal on the front? Naruto asked. Twilight widened her eyes, as if discovering something previously undiscovered. Yes. That's right. Your headband. Spike, you know where it is, don't you? Could you grab it from my study? She said as she nudged Spike with her hoof. Me? Why? He grumbled back in response. I need to talk to Naruto more. You're not doing anything else after all, are you? Spike grudgingly nodded back. I'm relaxing on the couch. It's more important. No, it's not. Go grab the headband, Spike. Defeated, Spike got off the couch and started the march up the stairs to her private study. He mumbled under his breath, mostly incoherent with a few tidbits about how much of a slave driver Twilight was. Naruto just snickered to himself, enjoying Spike's annoyed reaction. Twilight coughed forcefully, grabbing Naruto's attention once again. Right then. While he does that, let's continue where we left off. You said before that you don't know where you are, right? He nodded. Well, obviously you're in my house. It's a big library of books, but it doubles as my home. We're not actually in the official library section, but the books here are of my own personal collection. I love to read, she said, stretching her arms out to emphasize the amount of books in this room alone. She brought her hooves down before placing them under her chin. Right now, you're in Ponyville, located in the land of Equestria. Princess Celestia rules over this land, along with her sister, Princess Luna. Not only ponies live in Equestria. Diamond dogs, griffins, dragons, and others inhabit the land. Anything else? Naruto couldn't help it. He just stared at Twilight, jaw slack and halfway to the floor. Had he just walked into a fairy tale? He had to ask one more question, at the very least. How high exactly was he? Yet, he couldn't bring himself to ask, still dumbstruck at Twilight's brief summary. It felt like he was dreaming. A dream that he couldn't force himself to wake up from. Twilight frowned, disbelief all over Naruto's face. She got up off the couch and motioned for Naruto to join her by the window. Maybe a visual aid is in order. Come here and look outside. Naruto got up from the couch and followed her to a glass-pane window. She got up on her hind hooves and pushed open both sides of the window. A cool breeze brought fresh air into the library, its cool touch making him shiver slightly. Twilight looked at him curiously before nodding with her head outside, inviting him to take a look. He took a calming breath, preparing him for what he was about to see, before sticking his head out the window. He almost immediately fell back on his ass, simply dumbfounded. He closed his eyes while shaking his head, trying to process what he just saw. I'm hallucinating. I've finally gone crazy, he thought. He decided to take a gander one more time, just to double check. Outside, it was a clear, sunny afternoon. He could see people horses all around, or ponies as Twilight had said, going about their everyday lives. He saw one sky blue pony in a heated argument with a merchant over what seemed to be cherries. A little further away, two ponies were chatting about something apparently humorous as they burst out giggling and laughing a second later. Below, a big red stallion pulled a cart laden with apples, chatting with a smaller pony with a red bow in its hair as they moved down the road. A bright pink pony caught his eye, bouncing around as though she just swallowed a handful of soldier pills, and then some. Were all these ponies so damn colorful? Naruto slowly backed away from the window, shaking his head with his eyes closed, trying to wake himself up from this technicolor dream. But no, it was all real, and he was stuck in it. Stuck forever in this world of the unknown. Everything he worked for in his original world, everyone he met, all of his friends meant nothing anymore, but wait, that reminded him. How did I even get here to begin with? Twilight raised a brow at his sudden question. You don't know. Spike and I found you near the Everfree Forest. What's the Everfree Forest? You're kidding, right? Naruto shook his head. Twilight sighed, rolling her eyes, before continuing. You know, the Everfree Forest. Dangerous place. Tons of monsters that gobble up anything and everything. Clouds form on their own. Plants and animals grow by themselves. We found you sprawled out on the ground, unconscious, by the entrance. There was an explosion and purple smoke everywhere. Weird, now that I think about it, even if it was in the Everfree. His headache came back, thumping away at his brain with a hammer. This was too much. Too much to take in all at once. He needed time to straighten out his thoughts and figure out his priorities. Twilight sparkle. Can I have a few moments to myself? I need to think about this. All of this, it's simply overwhelming. Twilight simply nodded. Of course, Naruto, take all the time you need. If what you say is true, then this must be a lot to take in all at once. If I was in your hooves right now, I'd have been freaking out a long time ago. Besides, I need some time to think about this as well. She proceeded out the door, muttering to herself. What's taking Spike so long? I swear, if I catch him eating some of my mint chocolate chip ice cream again. Her voice trailed off as she left the room, leaving Naruto to wallow in his thoughts. Equestria. Ponies. Unicorns. Ponyville stuff that would fit right in a fantasy book, and he was living in it. Hell, even he had been turned into one too. He tried to remember his last few days in the Land of Fire. He thought back to when he had arrived in Konoha after a grueling escort mission. Yajirobe came to the forefront of his memories, him and that straw hat of his. This situation was caused by him teasing Naruto about alchemy, giving him that vitamin potion, lying about how it would help him. Everything was a lie. What did it get him? A one-way ticket to the next life. His last memory was of excruciating pain and something flat, hard, and cold. No wait. It was fuzzy, but he could recall something else. A black-robed person, going on about how he was dead, giving him a new life, and something about marrying a caveman and a horse. He face-hoofed, feeling very disturbed at what he just recalled. But getting back to his memories in hand, he was given a second chance in life, just not the one he had left. He banged his hoofs on the windowsill, anger coursing through his veins. If he was going to be given a second chance in life, it should have been in his own world, not this world full of magic and ponies. Was this his version of a sick joke? Or was there another reason for it? So many questions and so little answers, Naruto thought. As he started to flesh out other important details, such as the possibility of returning to his own world, or if they have a pony equivalent to Raymond, the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness blanketing the town. Naruto snapped out of his memories from the absence of light. How long had he been standing there, thinking? He took his hoofs off the windowsill and proceeded to stretch, much like that of a cat. He finished by cracking his neck twice, once to the left and right, before sighing in relief. Turning around, he found Twilight a few paces away sitting down, facing him. She waved at him with a small smile on her face. "Hey, are you alright?" "Yeah, I'm fine, I think. Thinking about things helped me clear my mind a bit, I think." Twilight nodded. As she did, Naruto noticed a metallic sheen on her forehead, right above where her horn stuck out from her head. He pointed at her forehead, more specifically, at the swirling symbol now visible through her hair. "Is that my?" Twilight blinked. She followed his line of sight to her forehead and tapped on it with her hoof, eliciting a metallic ping sound. She gasped before using her magic to take it off and fold it onto itself, the metal plate facing skywards. Right. I kinda forgot I had that on. I found Spike asleep on my cushion in my study. That baby still tries to shirk his responsibilities, I swear, Twilight said, as she rolled her eyes. It was still on my table, so I picked it up to hand it to you. I put it on to see what it would feel like, and she twiddled with her front hooves nervously. I guess I forgot I even had it on. She placed a small bundle of fabric in front of him. At least some things haven't changed, he thought. The metal was polished to a shine, the scratches embedded into the plate stuck out like a sore thumb, souvenirs of past missions and training. The black strap was still as soft as the first day he donned the protector. The icon of the Village of the Leaves embedded into the plate dead center, a constant reminder of his duty as a ninja. He couldn't help but smile weakly at it, knowing that he probably would never see his home again, stuck in this world, or his friends ever again. Regardless, it was a part of him. A part which he would never ever give up. Reaching out with his hoof, he tried to grab the headband, only to realize halfway there that he lacked opposable thumbs. He furrowed his brow and then lifted his other hoof to help pick it up, only to fall flat on his face when his frontal support disappeared. He rubbed his nose in pain, irritation at his new body growing bigger. Twilight was dumbfounded. It really did look like he was born yesterday. She stared at him a few moments more before lending him a helping hoof. She levitated the headband onto Naruto's forehead. Still not being used to the sight of magic, he froze, his eyes watching the protector float onto his head. She wrapped the headband around his head and tied a firm knot in the back. Naruto closed his eyes and placed a hoof on his forehead, the solid weight easing away some unknown tension. He felt more complete now. This headband took him into many successful battles back in his own world. This headband that he received from Iruka-sensei all so long ago. He took a deep breath and exhaled, opening his eyes once more. "Thank you, Twilight Sparkle," Naruto said, smiling. Twilight merely smiled back. "You're welcome to Naruto, and drop the sparkle. My friends just call me Twilight." "Well, feel free to keep calling me Naruto then." Haha, it only took a little chuckle for the tension in the room to finally break, making them both laugh well on into the night. Since Naruto had nowhere to go for the night, Twilight graciously offered him her spare guest room. Naruto didn't want to intrude, but Twilight insisted. Having a pony with no knowledge of the outside world wandering around at night was stupid, to say the least. Naruto couldn't believe this show of hospitality. Anyone else would have just tossed him out like the demon he was. As Naruto fell into the clutches of dreamland, Twilight stared at his sleeping form. Despite the confusion and weirdness of this particular pony, she couldn't help but find him somewhat cute. Especially that fox-like tail of his and those whisker marks on his face. The things she could do with Oh by Celestia. What was she thinking? She merely shook her head as she retreated off to her own study. In her study, Spike was organizing all the books she used from her last study spree. As she walked in, Spike turned around, books in one hand, the other with a handful of scrolls. Took you long enough, Twilight. You think you could lighten up on the study binges twice a week? I've re-shelved the entire study at least 5 times this week. Spike placed the books on the shelves and shoved the scrolls into a bin labeled in progress. Are you feeling alright, Twilight? Your face is a little red. What? No, I'm fine. Nothing wrong here. Nope. Well, if you say so. Anything else you need done before I hit the sack? My name is calling my name. Oh. Spike, take a letter. We need to let Princess Celestia know about this. I might as well include this with my friendship report. Spike merely nodded, pulling out a scroll, quill and inkwell before looking back at Twilight. Twilight took a deep breath as she said. Twilight sat on one of her sofas, an open fiction novel levitating in front of her. Every couple of minutes, she would flip the page using her magic, seemingly engrossed in the book. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Spike making his way through the library, feather duster in hand, dusting off any surfaces. She lowered her book slightly. Spike, stop spreading dust everywhere. All you're doing is just agitating it. Spike stopped dusting, turned to face her, and crossed both arms. His pink apron really stood out when he folded his arms, the words "Number 1 Assistant" in plain view. Well, excuse me, Princess. This feather duster isn't a dust vacuum, it's a duster. How else am I going to get all this dust cleared away? Spike asked, slightly annoyed. She merely rolled her eyes, emitting an ugh sound, before returning her attention to the book in front of her. As if on cue, a crashing noise came from the stairway, quickly growing in volume. She sat up with a start as she saw some pony tumble down the steps. A flash of blonde hair caught her eye as the yellow object hit the floor with a sickening thud. The blonde sat up slowly while shaking his head, trying to regain his bearings. Darn it, it's even harder to walk on steps like this, the blonde said. Twilight put her book down and trotted over to him before offering a hoof. Naruto, are you alright? Asked Twilight. Naruto looked up at Twilight and nodded, placing his hoof on hers to help himself back up. He stretched out each leg before cracking his neck 2 times, once right and once left. I'm good, these steps are nothing, he said as he turned around to face the steps, pointing at them with a hoof. You hear those steps? You haven't defeated me yet. I will beat you someday, believe it. Twilight's face went from that of concern to confusion almost instantly. She blinked a couple of times and smiled. Well, you're certainly more energetic than you were yesterday. I'm glad to see that. Naruto turned towards Twilight sporting a sheepish grin. He certainly did feel better after all that thinking and a good night's rest. It wasn't very often he was shown such hospitality, even in his own world. That line of thought brought something very important to the forefront of his mind. By the way, Twilight, this place is called Ponyville, right? That's right, she replied with a firm nod. Any interesting places around here then? I mean, Naruto started. He gestured at the room with a free hoof. Your home is pretty cool, so I'm really curious to see what it's like on the outside too. Twilight blushed slightly from the compliment. Well, of course. There are lots of things to show you in Ponyville. Are you still up for that tour I mentioned last night? Naruto nodded and Twilight smiled once more. Great. Twilight was about to walk out the door with Naruto in tow until she turned to look at Spike. She eyed the purple dragon carefully, watching as he went about his cleaning duties and reorganization of unshelved books. She frowned, mostly due to the fact that he was taking longer than normal to finish. This room better be clean when I get back, Spike. If it is, I might throw in a red diamond for dessert tonight. Twilight said. The dragon froze when he heard her say a red diamond and found himself drooling almost uncontrollably. If anyone appreciated jewels, Spike definitely did. Well, at least his stomach did. He snapped out of his daydream of ice cream and jewels before snapping into a militaristic salute. You can count on me, Twilight. Naruto and Twilight found themselves walking down the main street of Ponyville, a cool breeze whisking past them, bringing with a plethora of different smells. Flowers and freshly baked bread were the most dominant in the air. Ponies were out and about, some idly standing around enjoying the great day, while others were in a rush to get to where they were going. Rustic houses and small gardens lined the street, each garden filled with vegetables, flowers, or a dazzling combination of both. They passed by what seemed to be the market area. Market stalls stuffed to the brim with a bunch of different goods lined the square, each with a pony advertising their own goods. Ponies meandered around stall to stall picking up what they wanted, their wallets slowly growing emptier. From first glance, it was a pretty prosperous town, reminding him of the ones he passed through when he traveled through his world. It made him slightly homesick, but he would get used to it eventually. Twilight noticed Naruto's expression and stopped walking. Is something wrong with Naruto? Twilight asked. Naruto stopped as well and looked at her. Oh, nothing. It's just I didn't notice before, but the air here it's so clean and fresh and it feels peaceful here. Naruto said. Twilight tilted her head at this, but still gave a cheery smile. Well, feel free to breathe whatever air is around. It's not going anywhere soon, she giggled. This made Naruto chuckle. As he did, a small gurgling sound came from Naruto's stomach. He looked down embarrassed as he scratched his head with his hoof. Hey, guess Mr. Hungry down there doesn't like the fact I haven't eaten since yesterday, he said with a sheepish smile. Any place to grab a bite to eat around here? I'm starving. Sure, I know a nice sweet shop around here that we could go to. Would that be fine? I'm feeling a bit peckish myself. A sweet shop. When was the last time Naruto had any sweets? It didn't sound too filling, but then again beggars can't be choosers. Lead the way. Haha. As they continued walking down the street, something caught his eye. It was a house of gingerbread complete with graham crackers, icing, cherries, sprinkles, and gumdrops. He hadn't seen anything that amazing before. He stood there in awe, his mouth slightly drooling. He looked at Twilight, the corner of his mouth starting to twitch. Do we have to eat that entire house? I mean, even I have limits, Twilight giggled. Why of course we have to eat the entire house. Legends say that the first pony to eat it all in one sitting will never have to worry about going hungry ever again. Twilight said sarcastically. Haha, very funny Twilight, mocking my hunger like that, he said with a chuckle. In response, his stomach gurgled again. A slight red blush grew on his face as he walked towards the building with Twilight. This is Sugar Cube Corner. Mr. and Mrs. Cake run the place, and they can make just about anything that includes sweets. A friend of mine even works there, and she enjoys what she does, she said with a smile, but she can be pretty crazy at times. I can't wait to try out whatever they have here then. Although why would you call your friend crazy? Well, you'll see. Inside was actually pretty stylish. Rows of cakes, cupcakes, pies, cookies and whatnot lay on shelves and inside glass cases. It could have passed as a candy shop if not for the cakes on display. As they looked at all the sweets, a high, obnoxious voice came from the doorway behind the counter. Boo-oh. Customers, customers. Welcome. A flash of pink whizzed out the door and abruptly stopped in front of them. The pony had a pink coat of fur, hair of even lighter pink, and a trio of party balloons on her flank. Naruto tilted his head as Twilight giggled. Hey there Pinkie Pie. How's business? Twilight said to the hyperactive pink pony. It's going great Twilight. Ooh. In yet another pink flash, Naruto found himself nose to nose with a new pony. He flinched backward slightly, his personal bubble having popped rather instantaneously. However, it didn't stop there. Pinkie Pie bent her head and neck in such impossible ways to examine every inch of his body that trying to follow it all made him dizzy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Who's this? He looks like a cat, but maybe he's a cat pony. She poked her hoof at Naruto's face. With a whisker mark she then brings her hoof up towards his ear. And the spiky hair she caught sight of his tail and lunged for it, encasing it in a full body hug. And this beautiful and fluffy foxtail of his. The pony paused, somehow floating above the ground, wrapped around his tail. Wait, foxtail? Why would a cat have a foxtail? Maybe you're a hee-hee. No wait. What Twilight mentioned to him earlier was an understatement. She looked like she was in a constant sugar rush with a handful of soldier pills thrown in for kicks. He never saw anyone or anything move that fast before. Even some of the ninjas back in Konoha couldn't hold a candle to her speed and dexterity. Nonetheless, he felt more uncomfortable every second she was near him, that is, until he heard her call his tail a foxtail. Naruto furrowed his brows in thought and looked back. Now that he stopped to think about it, it did resemble a fox's tail. It was bright orange with the tip a snow-white color. Twilight came to the same conclusion as she gasped in realization. Hey, you're right Pinkie. I've never seen a tail like this on a pony before, she said as she leaned in for a closer look. I wonder why I didn't notice it before. Apparently, ponies have no sense of the term personal space, as she also latched onto his tail. But it looks so cute. Naruto grit his teeth trying to stay calm. Their touching of his tail sent weird sensations up his spine. It felt extremely weird and invasive. He tried to flick his tail away from the two ponies, but had trouble at first. Trying to control an extra limb you've suddenly acquired takes deliberate thought and concentration, something that he lacked almost entirely. However, his tail compiled and the mare's just awed as it moved through the air. Personal space, he said, elaborating each word with a hoof stomp on the ground. Anyway, what's so strange about my tail? He didn't know why he had this tail, but he had a feeling they wouldn't know how he got it either, so he just played it off. So I have a tail like this. I'm sure others have similar tails, right? I don't think so. I know eat every pony in Ponyville, she said, darting off towards Naruto's tail once more to resume her crusade over its fluff. And I don't know any pony here that has such a tail as yours. Especially with it being so fluffy. She started pressing against it once more, and Naruto flicked his tail away again, the weird tingling sensation from being touched still hanging around. See, can we just get our food and go, Twilight? Twilight looked abashed, bringing up a huff to cover her mouth. Oh, right. Of course. Pinkie Pie, you can adore his tail some other time. Naruto squinted at her from that comment, as if Twilight forgot she adored his tail too. But we'd like to buy some of your cake, if you don't mind. Pinkie's eyes widened in glee. Ooh. I didn't know you two came here to buy some sweets. Well, what do you and Whiskers want to eat? Naruto placed his hoof at his nose, as if trying to pinch the base of it. But since he had no fingers, it looked like he had a fascihoof instead. My name is Naruto, not Whiskers, alright. Pinkie Pie tilted her head, her mouth in an O shape. Naruto? Sounds like a piece of candy, or maybe a sandwich, or actually, maybe it sounds like a cat. For the love of Celestia, can we just purchase a couple of cherry pastries? Twilight interrupted with a shout. Naruto bit into a cherry pastry he had in one hoof, which he learned to curl his forehoof around. It proved to be a challenge as he was still adapting to this new body and its 4 legs. At least he wasn't falling over every other step now, but that was with 4 legs to support him. With the pastry taking up a leg, the other 3 had to compensate for the 4th's absence. Thankfully, nothing major happened concerning the ground and his face. The crunchy yet moist bread gave way to the delectable cherry filling inside as he took bite after savory bite. Naruto smiled, enjoying every morsel of the pastry to its utmost fullest. As they walked, Naruto started up some small talk to pass the time. I had no idea that Pink Pony would be so crazy. It's like she's in an indefinite sugar rush without the crash. Oh, don't worry about it. That's just Pinkie Pie being Pinkie Pie. She's always like that. Well, alright. As they walked, a rather exquisite-looking building came into view. It was just as colorful, if not more so, than its neighbors, but that wasn't what caught his eye. It resembled something like a carousel out of a noble's festival, rather than an actual building. If not for the door and windows, he would have thought it was actually a real carousel. Twilight followed his line of sight before gasping slightly. Oh, you've never been to Rarity's boutique here before, have you? Naruto shook his head at Twilight's question. Well, let me show you the place. We're good friends and her store is probably the best place for pony clothes in all of Equestria. Her tailoring skills are top-notch, as she would say. Naruto shrugged. Alright, sure. Let's go. They both finished off their pastries at the same time before proceeding towards the boutique. As they walked through the doorway, Naruto could see vast amounts of clothes, tailoring tools, and mannequins scattered all around. This was, indeed, a tailoring shop. A small voice drew his eyes toward a snow-white unicorn. She appeared to be concentrating on a mannequin which was on an elevated platform surrounded by mirrors. She was wearing red glasses and had a tape measure hanging loosely around her neck. Her purple hair was styled in such a way that it curled and swirled around itself. This simply won't do. It needs to be somewhat longer, the white unicorn said, taking a few measurements with her tape measure. She turned away from the mannequin that had the unfinished design and walked to a table with piles of fabrics. Rarity. Are you busy? Twilight said, trying to get the white pony's attention. Rarity's head popped up from the table and turned to face her, smiling in delight. Oh, hello dear. How are you? Rarity's smile turned into that of absolute horror. Her jaw dropped as she saw Naruto. Her eyes darted all over his body, apparently giving him a once-over to end all once-overs. He froze in place, not wanting to elicit something like the crazed pink pony from before out of someone else by accident. Then her eyes slowly crawled to the back of her head and she collapsed on the ground unconscious. Twilight had already sprung to action, her horn glowing to slow the white pony's fall before catching her in her hooves. Rarity, wake up. What's wrong? What happened? She said as she shook her repeatedly, trying to wake her up. Instead of helping, Naruto just scratched his chin trying to stifle a giggle. I know I'm good looking, but not that good, Naruto said with a chuckle. Twilight turned and voiced her own opinion at a much higher decibel level. Stop clowning around and help me, Naruto. After a few more seconds of jostling and shaking, Rarity came, albeit slightly dazed and confused. She groaned, rubbing her head. Where am I? She locked eyes with Naruto once again before her pupils became the size of pin needles. Eek. That look. The sheer volume caused Naruto to stagger and fall on his ass. Rarity immediately stood up and looked at him with a repulsively. Just what are you wearing? She immediately walked to Naruto and picked up a corner of his jacket with a hoof. This terrible orange color scheme. She then started ruffling Naruto's hair, and that awful hair. You look positively dreadful, darling. How can you stand to walk around like this? I mean. Naruto was about to say something about how insulting she was, especially since he loved the look himself, but caught himself when she froze and stared at an area behind him. He followed her eyes and found them fixed on his furry tail. She approached it. Naruto rolled his eyes in annoyance, waiting for the stream of insults about his weird tail as well. However, a familiar tingling went up his spine. He whipped his head around to find the white pony hugging and petting his tail. Oh my. This tail. It's simply wonderful. Your fashion sense may be horrible, but your tail just screams style. Once again, Naruto had to flick his tail away from another clingy pony, now hugging it to protect it from being assaulted by everybody else. Okay, what gives? What's with everybody and hugging my tail? That's the third time today. Naruto complained. Rarity backed away a couple of steps. I'm not surprised, darling. Your tail is simply fabulous. Oh, it's such a shame I do not have something as high quality as that. It would be simply divine. Naruto began to inch his way towards the door. Well, it was nice meeting you, Rarity, right? But me and Twilight really should get going. Twilight was still just standing there, an amused look on her face, deciding it best to just watch the proceedings instead. Hearing Naruto's plea for help, however, she finally spoke up. Sorry about that, Naruto. I didn't expect Rarity to. Twilight began, but was interrupted by Rarity. Oh pardon my manners, Twilight, I didn't mean to ignore you. I just couldn't help myself when I saw this mishmash of fashion stroll into my shop. I might have gone overboard just a tad. A tad, Naruto thought, was an understatement. Again, I'm sorry, Naruto. I should have known better than to surprise her like that. She's normally so reserved and well-mannered. I guess that meeting some pony new like you was just a little too much at once. I kind of noticed what with the fainting and pestering over my choice in clothes, Naruto said in a deadpan tone. Twilight frowned. I hope you're not mad. What? Oh, no. Just a little rattled, that's all, Naruto said. So far, today has felt more like a mission gone wrong than an actual tour of the town. Then again, he did manage to meet some of the more interesting townsfolk. A pink pony on an unending sugar rush and a white pony who made the fashion police look bad. It was quite a day so far. It can't get crazier than this, he mumbled to himself. As if on cue, something fast hit him from behind, sending him flying forward before face planting into the hard dirt road. When the world righted itself, he attempted to get back on his hooves, only to find that something was on his back, preventing him from moving. Yes. I found the fox, Fluttershy. I told you I could find him. He turned his head at the voice to find a cyan pony with wings sitting on his back, a smug grin plastered on her face. Her hair would have made rainbows jealous. The pony in question then proceeded to grab his tail, sending that peculiar tingling feeling shooting up his spine again. Hey. What's the big idea, bird brain? Let go of my tail. Naruto growled. The Pegasus raised a brow as she leaned in closer to Naruto. Hey wait, you're not a fox. What did you do with the fox, you fox? Oh great, yet another one, Naruto thought. Oh, no Rainbow Dash, that's not a fox, that's a pony. I think so, said a soft voice. A moment later, a yellow Pegasus with pink hair landed next to them. Naruto assumed that this Rainbow Dash was the one sitting on his back, judging from the visual cues and the name. I can see that. I bet he's hiding the fox so we can't find it. Hey, said Rainbow Dash, poking his head with a hoof, where did you hide the fox? Enough was enough. He flicked his tail out of her grasp and shook her off his back angrily. Once back on all four hooves, he turned to face the newcomers with built-up anger in his eyes. Can't I go more than 2 minutes without being assaulted by random ponies? First it was a pony going all sugar rushed at me, then it was a pony mocking my fashion sense, and now, he said, glaring at the blue Pegasus, it's a blind four-legged excuse for a pony who can't even tell apart a pony from a fox. What was that? Rainbow Dash said, slamming her head against Naruto's, who began to press back against her just as hard. Who are you calling blind, you cat-faced wannabe? Oh, now it's cat-faced. Are you sure you don't need glasses, or are you just that brain dead? Twilight and Fluttershy just stood there, watching the argument unravel in front of them. As their two colleagues kept verbally abusing one another, they struck up some small talk. Neither of them wanted to intrude on a moment such as this, and the tension in the air had reached an all-time high. So, Fluttershy, hey, she said, turning her head towards Fluttershy, what brings you and Rainbow here anyway? I heard something about a fox. Oh, yes, one of my foxes ran away in the middle of the night. Rainbow Dash and I were looking all over Ponyville when we came across you guys. Oh, he must be so scared, I hope he's alright. As Naruto and Rainbow Dash bickered in the background, now on the subject of rainbows and cotton candy, Twilight nodded towards Fluttershy. Ah, I see. Yep, definitely have to find that fox before it gets lost, Twilight said offhandedly, her attention mostly on the two arguing ponies. She pointed her hoof at Naruto. That's Naruto, by the way. He's new in town, or at least, I think he is. I was giving him the tour when we found you girls. Oh, yes. Fluttershy, however, seemed more interested in Naruto's tale than the fight at hand as her eyes tracked its every move. You want some of this, you piece of cotton candy, Naruto shouted. Who are you calling cotton candy, you Rainbow Dash shouted back. That doesn't even make any sense. It makes sense to me. He has a nice tail. It looks so adorable, Fluttershy said with a slight blush. Yeah, said Twilight, stifling a giggle. He gets that a lot. After a few more minutes of constant bickering from Rainbow Dash and Naruto, Twilight had had enough of this and forcefully separated the two using her magic. They both yelped in sudden realization that they were no longer on solid ground and began squirming, trying to force their way out of whatever was holding them. Alright, break it up. Let's be friends and stop fighting. Twilight said, looking each of them straight in the eyes. Despite the fact that they were being held aloft by magic, Rainbow Dash opted to flap her wings, giving her the appearance that she was just hovering there. Naruto, on the other hand, just hung in the air limply. Rainbow Dash smirked, savoring this small victory over the orange pony. He noticed his current predicament and just scowled, turning his head to look away from the three mares. HMPH, fine. My mouth is tired from shouting so much. So is mine. Both latched onto each other with icy glares until Twilight walked between them. Look, can't you two just shake hoofs and be done with it? This isn't a proper introduction at all. She said, releasing them from her telekinetic grip. Rainbow Dash and Naruto looked at each other once again, still staring. Naruto squinted, and so did Dash. Second after agonizing second passed by, neither wanting to be the first to back down. Finally, Naruto took the high road and broke the stair first, turning his head down. I guess we got off on the wrong foot, hoof. He raised a hoof. Name's Naruto. What's your name? Rainbow smirked at Naruto as if his name was the funniest thing she had heard all day. She lifted a hoof and planted it on Naruto's, each doing a quick single shake before withdrawing them. I'm Rainbow Dash, and you're looking at the fastest pony alive. Fastest alive, you sure are pretty fast with your mouth, said Naruto with a small snicker. Why you? Twilight put her hoofs between the two as they almost went at it again. How about we take a break, You can get to know each other later when we're not as busy as Rainbow Dash, don't you and Fluttershy have a missing fox to find? Rainbow Dash nodded at Twilight before looking at Naruto with disdain. We'll meet again, you can bet your mane on it. Rainbow Dash took off into the sky once again with such speed that she seemed more like a cyan blur than anything else. Fluttershy took off as well, albeit at a much slower speed, before waving at them and trailing after her friend. Naruto rubbed his head lightly as they continued their walk through town. It had been a long day and it wasn't even time for dinner. Is life here always this random? Always admiring other ponies' tails and tackling them when they least expect it? Naruto asked Twilight. She shook her head. Not always, but it's not every day that some pony as unique as yourself comes to town. What do you want to see next? Well, said Naruto in thought. Ahead in the distance, Naruto could see a large barn up ahead. He squinted, trying to get a clearer picture of the building. It could be a barn for animals, or maybe it was a house shaped like a barn. His curiosity was piqued. He pointed at the barn with a free hoof. Well, how about? Twilight. Naruto. Emergency. A purple dragon came running around the corner towards Twilight and Naruto, panting and sweating. I've been looking all over for you too. You need to come back to the library, quick. Why Spike? What's the matter? It's your house, Princess Celestia is there. Twilight felt her jaw drop. Princess Celestia is here. It didn't take them long to make it to Twilight's house, where they could see two figures guarding the door. White Pegasus with gold-plated armor covering only their heads, necks and backs, as if they were soldiers made for war. Naruto was curious as to why such guards were in such skimpy-looking armor to begin with though. Most fighters he had met were completely armored, or at least clothed from head to toe with something. But these guards didn't know what else to think. As Twilight, Naruto, and Spike approached the guards, they immediately stood upright and announced how Princess Celestia awaited their arrival and was waiting for them inside. Do you know why she would give such a rare visit as this one? The guards didn't say anything. Naruto tilted his head at this attitude. Why weren't they responsive? Twilight thought the same, but she only shrugged. Naruto, let's just head in. These are the royal guards of the princess. They tend not to speak unless they have a deep desire to do so, Twilight told Naruto. Naruto slowly walked past the guards, with a little bit of caution in his eyes. They stood still, like statues. It creeped him out a little. Inside the house, Naruto couldn't really believe his eyes on what he saw. A large Pegasus, or was it a unicorn? It had both wings and a horn, a majestic rainbow mane that looked to be blowing in an invisible breeze, and also wearing what looked to be a royal crown. She was reading a book that was suspended in air by a yellow aura, turning the pages as she desired with her magic. He couldn't help but leave his jaw hanging wide open. Twilight was also showing signs of shock, even though Spike had told her exactly who was here beforehand. Princess Celestia. It's an honor for you to come on such a visit. Twilight took it deep bow. Naruto looked between Twilight and back at Celestia. He then proceeded to scratch his chin with his hoof. That's one beautiful princess, Twilight. I had no idea royalty existed here. He stopped as Twilight's hoof ended up shoving his face into the ground in an attempt to make him bow so as to not disrespect the princess. Twilight gave an oops kind of look as she chuckled, evidently not intending to use such force. Ah ha ha. Sorry Naruto, but you shouldn't be rude to the princess, it can get you into a lot of trouble. Celestia looked up from her book and placed it back on the shelf, giving a heartwarming smile to the two ponies and the dragon standing in front of her. Twilight, my star pupil, it is great to see you again. She then shifts her gaze back at Spike. And you too, Spike. She then shifts her gaze to the blonde pony. Her smile slowly disappeared into a neutral expression. You must be the pony that Twilight found. The one who does not understand where or what he is. Celestia stated. Naruto went wide-eyed. How such a fact became known to Celestia, he didn't know. Naruto looked at Twilight, how does she know about that? Can she read people's minds? Twilight gave a nervous chuckle as she was about to speak up, but Celestia interrupted her. My star pupil sent me a letter just last night telling me of your condition. I thought it was a strange case, so I arranged for a special, but brief, visit here. Celestia said, while getting closer to Naruto. You do seem to look rather unique, to put it in a mild tone. I haven't seen a pony like you. She eyed Naruto from head to toe, squinting her eyes slightly. Naruto raised a brow. He wondered why she kept calling Twilight a star pupil. Were they teacher and student? He couldn't tell, especially since he couldn't find any resemblance between the two. Naruto backed away from Celestia, trying to buy himself time to think from under the impressive presence. She muttered. She lifted her head and looked towards Twilight and Spike. Twilight sparkle, Spike. Could I have you two wait outside? I need to speak to this individual alone. Twilight immediately bowed once more. Oh of course princess. Come on Spike, let's wait outside. As they walked outside and shut the door behind them, Princess Celestia gave a forced cough and looked at Naruto. She circled around him, eyeing him down from head to toe once more. Strange clothes, a headband that seemed out of place, and most of all, a wagging foxtail. She thought it to be kind of cute on him, but she had to show some restraint, as if forcing herself not to hug it. She may be a princess, but even she was finding the feeling of cuteness difficult to keep in check. She stopped eyeing him from head to toe and stopped in front of him. You're not from Equestria, are you, Naruto? That is your name, correct? Celestia asked. Naruto gave a nod. That's my name, princess. And how could you figure out I'm not from here? Your strange clothing design contributes to it, the look of your hair and the markings on your face, but there is one more factor of all. And that is your tail. Naruto then immediately rolled his eyes. Please tell me you're not going to cuddle my tail too. Celestia took a small step back, a little shocked. What makes you say that? Naruto furrowed his brow with an irritated glare. Every pony that I've seen today has had a field day over my tail. First it was hugged, then petted, then grabbed. All the ponies around here won't stop admiring it. It's like the tail has magical powers that entrances any pony that sees it. Celestia darted her eyes from left and right, trying to find an excuse to counter-argue it. Well, it is a lovely tail after all, Naruto. Naruto placed his hoofs on his head in disbelief. Oh lord, not you too. Princess Celestia gave a brief chuckle at Naruto's predicament. I am sure the problem will die down soon enough, but tell me something about Naruto Celestia. Why is it that you didn't even know what you were? From what I know, you even had a difficult time walking, as if you were just born recently. Naruto stared at the princess for a moment. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to hide where he came from for much longer. Since she was of royalty, it probably wouldn't hurt to tell her the bare bones of what had happened to him. Heck, maybe she could help him out. Maybe she'd know some way of returning him to his own world. So he sat on his rear and explained how he had died once due to a freak accident and ignorance on his part, but he didn't mention that, had been given a second chance by death himself and suddenly appeared in this world. The brief but detailed story left Celestia wide-eyed. You died once and were given a second chance at life. She narrowed her eyes down. That's quite a tale, Naruto, but I don't think I can quite believe that. Naruto merely sighed in response. It's hard to believe, I know. Heck, I have a hard time believing such events took place to begin with, but he spread his arms, indicating the entirety of the room. I can tell this isn't a dream. It feels too real. And if it were a dream, I wish I could wake up from it. I miss the life I originally came from. Celestia didn't know how to respond to this. It was a strange set of events that left her bewildered. A pony that obviously wasn't from this life and time, and yet, she still couldn't believe it. She looked at him a little more, walking in a brief circle around him while also stroking his tail with her own. Naruto shivered as he snatched his tail away from the princess. Darn it, can't you see that I've had enough furry tail business, you're freaking me out. Celestia gave a slight blush as she gave a chuckle. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself, and it's just not like me. But I had to feel the soft texture of your foxtail. It feels nice, to be honest. Naruto, once again, rolled his eyes. He wished he could just cut off his tail and be done with it. But that would just be unimaginable pain he'd rather not experience. As the princess stood in front of him, she asked. Well then, I believe you should keep your otherworldly experiences or whatever else they could be kept secret. You would probably just end up confusing others otherwise for once, Naruto agreed with her. If his previous life got leaked, it would make him appear really weird or even a murderer to others if they dove deeper into his past. I do have 2 more questions to ask you, Naruto, if you are so inclined. Naruto nodded and the princess smiled. What were you previously, and are you getting used to your new form? In my life, I was called a human. We stood on 2 legs instead of 4, and we didn't really have all this fur or tails or anything on us. You could say we're similar to Spike, actually, except much taller, and we wouldn't have scales or anything like that. We normally wear clothes from head to toe as well. But as you can see, I'm only wearing my jacket and my pants. This form takes some getting used to, as well. Creatures similar to Spike, you make these humans sound interesting, she said with a smile. She did find something odd about his small description though, as she leaned her head toward Naruto's lower half. Also, I do not see you wearing any pants, Naruto. Naruto raised a brow. No disrespect, princess, but what are you talking about? My pants are right, huh? As he patted himself down to his lower half, he realized he couldn't feel any cloth. He nervously looked down and became wide-eyed. He immediately covered his lower half and yelled. I'm for the love of Raymond, I'm. Twilight and Spike could hear some yelling from inside, something along the lines of Naruto yelling. Twilight immediately had a blush bloom on her muzzle as she stared at the door. The guards still stood there as if they were statues, but even they had a slight tinge of red on their faces as they stood their ground. What in Equestria is Celestia doing there? Twilight said to herself. Naruto, calm yourself. Your dignity is nowhere in danger while being pantless. It is common for us ponies to normally go about without clothing, except for during the winter. But my pants, my beautiful pants. Those pants saved my life more than once before, Naruto mumbled in disbelief, rocking back and forth in the fetal position. Celestia just shook her head as she walked behind him and stroked his tail again. This made Naruto flinch out of his ball and crawl away from her, with his tail firmly between his hoofs. I said don't do that. Listen, Naruto. What you see right now is where you are. There are rules, customs, and other such things to learn when you're in a place that you are not familiar with. I'm sure you've gathered that much. Naruto stood back up on all fours and nodded. I'm aware, it's just I'm sorry, princess, I'm still trying to get used to things around here. It takes time. I agree with Naruto. You should take the time to familiarize yourself. Or else you may be miserable, she plainly stated. But after delivering that line, she gave a bright smile. Now then, I believe that's all that needed to be said. Any other questions, Naruto? Naruto looked up at the ceiling and then back at her with a nod. Yes, it's more of a request, actually. Yes. Please don't touch my tail again. With her business with Naruto concluded, Princess Celestia took Twilight aside to talk to her about a few things as well. What it was, Naruto didn't know, since he was now the one waiting outside. He stared at the guards as they stood next to the door, not moving a single muscle. He poked at their armor, feeling the hard and cold surface. He looked back at the guards, and they still made no move. Naruto grinned slightly as he poked their noses too. No response. Then he tried sticking his tongue out. No response. He crossed his hooves while standing on his hind legs. Even though he had been human not long ago, he found it difficult to balance on hooves, falling on his butt once more. He sat up and stared at the guards for a couple minutes before growing bored. He tried talking to them. So how about them ponies, eh? You two got any girlfriends I should know about, or maybe boyfriends? Even with this line, the guard still made no reaction. Naruto was growing even more bored. These are really loyal guards. I'd hate to be one of them if it involved standing around all day and not moving a muscle. He wondered what was taking Celestia and Twilight so long inside. A few minutes had already passed. He just sighed. He still had an urge to go to that farm-looking area he saw earlier, plus he needed to practice walking a little more. He looked back at the guards. Hey guard ponies, I'm going to take a walk. If the princess and Twilight come out before I get back, let them know, will you? The guards gave curt nods. Of all the reasons for a response, was that it didn't matter, he needed to head to that farm. Naruto kept improving his trotting as he crossed town, keeping the farm ahead of him. As he walked, he slowly started to increase the pace, going a little faster than he was before. He stumbled a couple of times but soon found himself in an easy power walk. So far so good. Let's try a little jog. He started running a little faster, putting one hoof in front of the next, making sure not to trip over himself as he does so. He was so focused on running that he soon ran face first into a wooden fence. He gritted his teeth in pain as he shook his head, tenderly prodding the sore spot on his nose. He looked up to find a sign on the fence post that read Sweet Apple Acres. I knew it, some kind of apple farm, Naruto said to himself. It was worth exploring, since he hadn't been anywhere else. This was a good opportunity to test his jumping skills, to see if he still had it. He backed up a little bit, getting some running distance. Then he ran as fast as he could, before jumping over the fence, cleanly at least that was what he wanted to believe. One of his hind legs caught the fence, and Naruto landed on the other side of the gate, face first. He growled in the soft dirt, spitting it out as he sat up and looked around. It seemed to be a typical farm, although what caught his attention was the endless amount of apple trees in front of him. His jaw dropped at the forest of apple trees, pulling him in subconsciously. He looked up at the apple tree as he approached it, noting that the branches were well beyond his reach. He looked at the base of the tree, then backed up at the apples. This would be a good opportunity to see if his chakra system still worked. The technique he learned back when he was a lot younger, when Team 7 was still in full swing. He remembered back when Kakashi was teaching him, Sasuke and Sakura, how to summon chakra to their feet. When done correctly, it allowed them to walk up walls, or trees. It had taken a while to understand how to do it, and it had become natural to them as time went along. But he didn't know if it applied to a pony. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and focused. He pushed the chakra around himself as he directed it towards his forelegs, storing the chakra inside his hooves. A small but brief chakra aura formed around Naruto as he opened his eyes. He looked back up at the tree and placed a hoof on the bark. As each hoof made a connection to the tree, he slowly started to walk up the tree. A hoof detached momentarily, but a small boost in chakra helped with that. He climbed the tree slowly and deliberately. Reaching both front hooves out, he threw his body towards a branch, desperately climbing up it. He soon managed to lift his entire body up, simply sitting on the branch. Naruto had beads of sweat on his face as he wiped it away with his left hoof. He did it. It took some alterations, but he still had his chakra system and his own chakra. He took a nearby apple with both hooves and looked at it. It was a shiny red apple. There was a small bruise on the top, but it didn't matter to him. He sunk his teeth into the juicy and colorful apple. He cleaned off the core immaculately, spinning it as if it were a cob of corn. He feels his stomach plumping up slightly as the apple settles in. He gave a light burp as he relaxed into the tree, satisfied with it, and threw the apple core down below. "Ah, that was a good apple," he said as he rubbed his stomach. As he did so, he took a look at his hooves in front of his face. Not a single finger. Suddenly his eyes bolted open as he realized something. Something very important. He had control of his chakra, but he couldn't use most of his jutsu anymore. The seals required fingers. Without them, he wouldn't be able to use anything. His thoughts went forward with the jutsu he did know and tried to think what he could use. Rasengan, a movie that has saved Naruto several times in the past, he wasn't sure he could use it since that required the assistance of the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Although, it might be possible to perform the Shadow Clone Jutsu. It's just one very simple hand sign, after all, maybe it can be adapted. He placed his hooves in a cross-like pattern, with one arm crossing horizontally and the other vertically. It could probably substitute for having no fingers. He crossed them and focused his chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto yelled. As Naruto expected, there was no response. He needed fingers. He placed his hooves at the side of his stomach, feeling as though his strength had been cut in half. Most of his were impossible to use. But he'd find a way, he always did. "Come on you pesky apple, I almost got you." The small, red-haired pony was trying to grab an apple dangling from a tree. She was holding onto the branch that held the apple, keeping herself balanced. She reached out and managed to touch it, giving a small smirk and suddenly brimming with confidence. "Almost got you. I'll show everyone that I'm good at picking apples. Maybe that's what my cutie mark will be too. It's gotta be something about apples." As she inched herself closer to the apple, the branch bent ever more. She paid it no mind as she made a desperate grab for the apple, catching it in both hooves. She gave a big bright smile as she grabbed it. Which quickly left her face as the branch broke. Relaxing his head on the tree, he looked at the splendid view in front of him, seeing endless apple trees as far as the eye can see. It was a breathtaking sight. He spotted a small pond nearby. It was an odd thing to see on an apple farm, but then again, Naruto wasn't an architect, so he wasn't really qualified to make such a judgment. Enjoying the view, watching the sun, even watching the fishes splash up and down in the small pond. "Help me. I can't swim. Yep, just nothing but the fishes yelling how they can't swim, Naruto thought. There was something really strange with what Naruto just thought. He sat up and looked at the pond once more, squinting his eyes. He could have sworn he heard some fish calling for help. Help blah blah blue help. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the words for help. He wasn't imagining it after all. He immediately hopped down from the branch, ninja style, landing safely on the ground as he forced chakra into his hooves, cushioning his fall. He then sped off in the direction of the pond, where he saw splashing and heard the calls for help. As the pond got closer, the thing that was calling for help became more apparent. It looked like a smaller version of a pony in his eyes, with a red mane and a light yellow colored body. It seemed to be a child. The drowning pony immediately took notice of Naruto. "Mister, help me bub I can't swim." The young pony begged him. In Naruto's eyes, there was no telling how long the child would last. Looking at the pond, he focused his chakra into his hooves. He had to make sure it was a balanced amount of chakra because water was completely different from a solid object. This required much greater control than climbing a tree. He placed one hoof on the pond and it stayed. So far, so good. He placed his other front leg out and once more, it stayed in place. He slowly started to walk across the water until he felt one of his hind legs sink slightly. Naruto managed to lift his leg before it pulled him under. The young pony was shocked to see Naruto walking on water like he was. But eventually, her shocked expression came to a halt as the young pony slowly lost her strength and disappeared under the water's surface. Naruto went wide-eyed and cursed himself, immediately reaching out to bite the pony's hair. He could feel a very weird taste in his mouth as he was almost pulled under along with the young one. Strengthening his back, he pulled the young pony out of the water and threw her towards the other side of the pond. He could see the young pony land safely on the soft grass and gave a sigh of relief. But this relief was short-lived as he felt his feet almost give way under him. He couldn't relax, not yet. He slowly walked off the small, though deep, pond and onto dry land. He collapsed on the ground as he tried to catch his breath. That was scary. Forcing my techniques into a rushed experiment was a big risk. Good thing it worked out. He still had a lot to learn about this furry body of his, and he needed to adapt as soon as possible. He eyed the young pony, examining her from head to toe. Good, she seemed to be breathing. But Naruto wondered where it came from. Did it live on this farm? As he was trying to gather his thoughts on this, he stood up, hearing voices from the distance. The voices had a peculiar accent to them, and they were shouting for someone, Apple Bloop he thought. As the voices got closer, he saw an orange pony galloping towards him. It looked like a female pony in his eyes, sporting a cowboy hat and a blonde mane and a ponytail, and a dull orange body. And her accent, he'd never heard anything like it before. The awkward hat-wearing pony went wide-eyed as she saw the young pony collapsed on the ground, wet and shivering. She gritted her teeth, staring right at him. "You, Blondie, what did you do to Apple Bloom?" the cowgirl shouted. Naruto waved his hooves in front of him. "Whoa, calm down. I don't know who this Apple Bloom or whatever her name is, but I had to save a drowning pony from that lake there," he said as he pointed towards the lake. The cowgirl pony raised a brow as she took another look at the pony and then looked at Naruto as she pointed towards the pony. "You saved Apple Bloom?" Naruto gave a nod. He assumed the young pony's name was Apple Bloom. "I was just minding my own business until I heard shouts for help. I came here as soon as I could and saved this drowning pony from, well, drowning," Naruto explained. The cowgirl pony relaxed as she walked over to Apple Bloom, nudging her. "Apple Bloom, wake up," she said as she nudged her sister. "She's going to need rest." "That whole experience took a lot out of her," Naruto said. The cowgirl looked back at Naruto and then at Apple Bloom. She gave a firm nod towards him. Naruto grabbed the pony using his front hooves and placed her on the cowgirl's back. She gave a big smile towards him. "Thank you kindly, stranger. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what would have happened to my dear little sister, so thank you." "It's no problem. My name's Naruto, by the way." "Mine's Applejack, pleased to meet ya," she said as she placed her hoof in Naruto's. They could both hear a big, deep voice within the distance. Applejack looked back at Naruto. "Well, I gotta get back to my brother. He was looking for Apple Bloom too." "I owe you, Naruto, I really do," she said with a big smile. Naruto merely smiled back, "Anytime, Applejack." With this response, Applejack was about to head off until she looked back and got a good look at Naruto. "By the way, Naruto, did I mention you had a..." At this point, Naruto wished he didn't have ears. He knew what she was going to say, he just knew it. So he saved her the trouble by interrupting her. "Yes, I know, I have a fluffy foxtail, what is with everyone in my tail?" he ranted. Applejack tilted her head at his comment and merely shook her head. "I was going to say that those whisker marks were kinda cute, they look kinda like a kitten," she said with a slight blush. This took Naruto by surprise, a blush forming on his own muzzle. Oh, I suggest you get off the farm as well. It's off limits. I'll make an exception this time because of what you did, but ask for permission next time, she said as she galloped off towards the distant voice. He was still a little stunned at the whisker comment, since it was a bit different than his foxtail. He shook his head, venting the heat in his face. At least that Applejack pony is nice, I think, Naruto said to himself. He didn't want to linger here any longer, not wanting to cause any more trouble than necessary. He galloped off in a random direction, jumping over a fence as he got to it. He assumed he was off their property now, but one more major detail had to be solved. He had to figure out where the hell Twilight's house was. The Everfree Forest, are you sure of this? Celestia asked. Yes, Princess Celestia. Spike and I found him at the edge of the Everfree Forest while looking for a particular mushroom. He was covered in this strange purple smoke or fog, we couldn't tell what it was. Twilight confirmed to her. The details were strange indeed. Celestia brought her hooves together, thinking deeply. If what Naruto said to her was true, he was definitely brought into this world under unique circumstances, and Twilight's information on the event only contributes to it. But something about this didn't seem right, the events just didn't add up. Celestia only sighed as she looked at Twilight. Tell me, my pupil, what is your reaction towards this individual? Well, he seems nice, but confused at the same time. It's like he was born recently with the way he acts. Yes, I gathered the same idea. He is a rather strange individual. However, he seems to be a nice young gentle pony, despite having some. Celestia paused for a moment and eyed down at the ground before looking at Twilight once more, unique features, to put it simply. Twilight gave a nod towards her teacher. They both stopped talking for a minute or two as the silence consumed the room. Celestia looked back at Twilight. He is staying with you, correct? Twilight flinched a little at the sudden question, with a small blush across her face. Well, yes, I couldn't just abandon him. He seems to be having all sorts of issues, especially with not knowing where he was and this amnesiac vibe he's giving off. It just screams help me, Twilight said to Celestia. She gave her a firm nod. Do you know how long he will be staying? That really caught Twilight off guard. Well, no, he never told me. How long do you want Naruto to stay with you? Until he's gotten his bearings and is well enough to take care of himself. Basically, I would like to not abandon him. Twilight replied. You do realize that having a young stallion, such as him, living in your own house, would not be a healthy matter? Twilight tilted her head thoughtfully. I don't understand. It's not like he's been here for a long time. It's only been a day or two since he arrived. Yes, of course, but I am only worried for your well-being. There can be circumstances where a mare and a stallion could be out of control, to say it simply. Twilight suddenly felt her face flush red. What's gotten into you, your highness? It's nothing like that. Not at all. Her eyes darted to the floor before coming back up to Celestia. Nothing at all. Celestia locked her eyes on Twilight's. A moment later, Celestia blinked as she nodded slowly. Very well, I will trust you with this, but please don't let him live here for too long. Once he is well, make sure you send him on his way. I am sure it would be only a burden on him and yourself if he stayed. Twilight blinked once at Celestia's request. Ah yes, your majesty, but I have one request myself. Celestia got up from the sofa and motioned for her to follow her towards the door. What would that be, my pupil? If he is to agree with it, I would like to keep him here until he has arrangements to live on his own, be at his own place, or simply to be off on his travels once more. Celestia stopped walking and stared at the ceiling for a moment while sucking her lower lip in thought. She stared back at Twilight. You're sure of this, Twilight? Twilight nodded in response. Celestia sighed as she maintained eye contact. Very well. All I ask is that you do not keep him here too long. Also, do keep an eye on him. Send me a message if anything goes wrong. Understand? Twilight nodded confidently in response. Well, you made it. Goddamn, that took too long. Naruto had been lost around town for the last half hour. He'd spent a good amount of that time running through and around the town, trying to find his way back to that treehouse. It felt as if he'd taken 2 laps of the town and he'd worked up a decent sweat. I really should have asked Twilight for a map or something before I took off. Eventually he located the tree that housed both the town library and the lavender unicorn that had brought him in. He saw Spike sitting outside, reading the brown book in his claws. The gold-armored guards were still standing watch on either side of the library door, so he assumed that Celestia and Twilight were not done talking just yet. Naruto walked toward Spike. Much to his surprise, Spike looked up from his book and waved at him. Hey, Naruto, where have you been? Spike asked. The guards told me you went for a walk, but you were gone for a good while. Naruto merely scratched his head as he recalled what happened back at the farm. It's a long story, but in a nutshell, I saved a drowning pony while I was walking around. Naruto said it was no big deal, but to Spike and the guards it was a pretty big deal, immediately going wide-eyed at the statement. Spike immediately hopped up and smiled, while the guards just went back to their neutral demeanor after the brief shock passed. Wow, really? Who did you save? Spike asked. You know two ponies named Applejack and Applebloom? Naruto replied. Well, yeah. They're Twilight's friends, and they own Appleacre Farm. So what Naruto heard from Applejack is correct. He mistakenly trespassed onto the farm without knowing it. But, because of his trespassing, he was able to save the little sister of Applejack. That's one way of introducing yourself to someone. I saved Applebloom. This girl, pony, named Applejack, came over to me and thanked me for saving her. Wow. You must really be something to be saving Applebloom like that. Spike said with a cheerful smile on his face. Are you like a superhero or something? No, I was just helping out a pony in need, that's all. I'm sure anyone would have done the same thing in my stead. They continued to talk about what had happened with Naruto at Sweet Apple Acres. A few minutes later they were interrupted by the sounds of the door opening. Naruto's head immediately snapped in the direction of the guards. Two figures appeared between the pair as Celestia and Twilight exited the library. The guards stomped their hooves down as if signaling her arrival. Twilight looked at Naruto with a nervous smile. Hey Naruto, have you been waiting long? She asked. Just taking a quick walk is all, getting used to the surroundings and such. Naruto said with a smile. Celestia was about to say something else when Spike suddenly hopped towards them. Twilight, Princess Celestia. Naruto saved Applebloom from drowning earlier. He said with happiness. Twilight's and Celestia's jaws dropped at the sudden information as they looked straight at Naruto. What did Naruto do? They both said in unison. Naruto gave a small blush in his cheeks as he scratched his head with his hoof. Why yeah, I guess I saved a drowning pony on an apple farm, did I forget to mention that with my walk? Naruto said nervously, pretending to be confused. They still stared at him in disbelief as their facial expressions contorted towards a smile. That's wonderful Naruto. Twilight said with a cheerful smile. Princess Celestia looked impressed at the stallion's heroic behavior as well. It is indeed. You just saved a pony's life after all. I thank you Naruto. Celestia said. Naruto couldn't help but blush from the praise he was getting. Celestia looked at Twilight and then back at the rest of the group. Well then, I guess my claims may have been mistaken. Maybe your rival was that of a blessing. Celestia said. Naruto raised a brow at that. What does that mean? It is nothing but now I must go. It is getting to about time for my sister to raise the moon, so I must return to Canterlot post-haste, she said as she spread her wings, her guards doing the same, before slowly lifting off. Farewell Naruto, may fortune favor you. With that, she flew off, along with the guards, towards the castle-bearing mountain on the horizon. They watched as she slowly disappeared into the distance as Spike, Twilight, and Naruto watched. Naruto blinked a little, wondering what she meant by her claims being mistaken. Nonetheless, he did know that his actions left a good impression of him on the princess. And he knew that giving a good impression with someone of royalty was a good start. She ran off in a hurry, Naruto said curiously. What did she mean by raising the moon, though? Twilight thought she'd seen the end of Naruto's oblivious nature, but it seems she was wrong. She looked at Naruto with a dumbfounded look. Don't tell me you're not aware how the sun and moon works. Naruto tilted his head at her question, a puzzled look plastered on his face. It just goes up and down on its own, Naruto answered. Twilight shook her head. Princess Celestia is in charge of the sun, while her younger sister, Princess Luna, is in charge of the moon. It's how the day and night cycles work here. Naruto stood there, looking at her as if she's crazy. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Twilight said as she squinted with one eye. Naruto looked up into the sky and said out loud. There's so much to learn here, so much that's different from what I used to know. It's kind of sad, he said with a frown. It's even more surprising how it requires 2 unicorns just to handle the sun and moon. You mean alicorns? She said. Huh? Princess Celestia and Princess Luna are called alicorns, basically, a mix of a Pegasus and unicorn. They are 2 of the 3 that exist and are very powerful. A mix of 2 species. That would explain how Celestia had both a horn and wings. He looked up towards the sun and then back at her. So what did Princess Celestia talk to you about? We mostly talked about how I found you and what the plan was for you while you are here. I see it's probably none of my business to ask, but did the princess come off as hostile towards me? Naruto asked. Twilight raised a brow at him. No, I don't think so. Why do you ask? I'm not sure, I think Naruto began, but then he just closed his mouth. He just shook his head. Never mind, it's probably just me. Still growing used to things here after all. Spike stood in the background, all quiet while he read his little book. He looked up towards them and shook his head, digging his nose through his book still. So how are you feeling so far? You've been here for a day or so now, and you saved a pony from drowning. Sounds like you're quite the stallion despite being confused all of the time. Twilight asked. She's right. I've made a good amount of progress and figured out where I stand in terms of abilities. I'm gonna need a little more training to improve what I do have, but I'm mostly going to be playing it by ear while I get used to things here. Getting used to things here, I can't repeat that enough. Here, in an unknown world that's completely unfamiliar, all I can do is get used to it. There's no chance of getting back to Konoha. Well, I hope there was a way, but I don't want to put too much thought into that. I'm going to have to adapt until I find out if it's possible or not. Then again, my world is in constant war, always an ongoing conflict. Especially with the Akatsuki who were hunting him and the Kyuubi. It was a miserable life. It was ironic how my death took me from a world of endless chaos and placed me in a world of peace and tranquility. There was no war, everyone seemed to treat everyone else equally. It was nice to be able to walk through the streets without everyone avoiding me for being the Kyuubi's host. This was paradise. Naruto. Are you there? Naruto snapped back to reality as he heard Twilight's voice. Huh? Yes. Did you say something? I said, are you feeling alright? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Once I get used to things here, I'll be alright, I think. Twilight looked a little puzzled at Naruto's last response, but she merely shrugged. Well, okay then. Do you have any idea how long you'll be staying for? I mean, it's not a problem or anything, but my house is pretty boring to most ponies, what with all the books and me asking questions, and… No, that won't be a problem. But in a way, she had a point. He couldn't stay with her forever. It would just be a burden on her. He took a moment to think about how he was stuck in this world. He needed to get his hooves under him, learn how to live on his own. He looked at Twilight. I do need to make some progress if I'm going to be here in Ponyville for a while, as I don't have anywhere else to go. There's no point in acting like a lazy bum. I need to get active. Twilight gave a smile at Naruto. That's the spirit of Naruto. But what do you plan to do? That was a good question. He didn't know much about the history of this world, he didn't have any money, and he certainly didn't have a home of his own. These were the three most important things that he needed to attain. What does the currency look like here in Equestria? Twilight tilted her head at Naruto's strange question. What kind of money does this land use? He corrected and simplified himself. You've never seen the stopping in mid-sentence. She was feeling a little tired of the weird questions and just decided to answer it without question. The money here is called bits. They're small coins that we use to purchase anything of value. Come inside, I'll show you. Sitting on the sofa, he could see a few coins laid out on the coffee table. They were golden and round, with a slightly different colored rim around them. He held one coin with two hoofs to get a good look at it. He blinked a little. No paper money, but just coins. It would be a burden if one had to carry a bag full of these. There are a number of ways to get bits. Mainly you get them from working. Naruto interrupted. Twilight nodded before continuing, glad that he understood this much at least. Right. I get bits for running the library, for example. Naruto gave a firm nod. He knew that he needed money. Without money, he would be quite limited in what he would be able to do here. He needed a job, he knew that. But first, Twilight, I have a request. What is it? I would like to live here for a little longer. At least until I get enough money to get a home of my own. You have treated me with a lot of kindness, heck, more kindness than I've ever been given. I'm not here to abuse your kindness or anything, but barely having any possessions of my own money, property, or anything else, I am rather lost here. So. Naruto stood up before promptly falling to his knees, bowing towards Twilight, startling her with a sudden sentiment. I ask you, please let me stay here. I'll pay you back somehow once I'm all settled in. Twilight didn't know what to think of Naruto's response. He was definitely appreciative of what she had done for him, which she could see. She waved her hoof towards Naruto. Hey, no need to go that far, Naruto. I can't just abandon a pony in need after all. Please, get up. She stammered nervously. Naruto returned to his hooves per her request. For now, just get some rest. We can decide on what kind of work we can find for you tomorrow, alright? Why not start right now? Naruto asked. Twilight pointed her hoof towards the window. It's already nighttime in Naruto. Naruto blinked at her response. He walked towards the window and found that the moon was high in the sky, with no trace of the sun to be seen. He looked back at Twilight with his mouth agape. But it was just sunny. How did the night come so quickly? As he remembered that the two princesses control the day and night cycle, so the day and night cycles switch a little more quickly than he was used to. But he started to wonder. If the sun and moon cycles are controlled by two princesses, does that mean if one went missing, it would cause an eternal day or night? The whole idea was still confusing to him. Twilight walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder. You'll get used to things around here, I promise, Naruto. Naruto couldn't help but smile at that. Yeah, you're right. I'll get used to things around here no matter what, he said towards the window and then back at Twilight. Believe it. The next morning. While Spike stayed at the library to do his chores and to take care of the place, Twilight and Naruto headed off to the Ponyville Square in hopes of finding Naruto a job. I have no idea how long I'm going to be living here, but the last thing I want is to feel like I'm being a lazy bum, Naruto thought. The square was bustling with activity as ponies went about their daily lives. The sounds of vendors promoting their wares, of haggling being carried out, of little fillies playing nearby. But what Naruto really noticed was just how pleasant the mood around everyone sounded, happy, more so than he'd ever heard before in Konoha. This is Ponyville Square, Naruto. A place of fun, relaxation, and goods. As you can see, there are several stalls here selling their goods. And we're not far from some of the more notable permanent locations, like Sugar Cube Corner where Pinky works and Rarity's Carousel Boutique. But you already knew that, right? Sort of, but I don't think I was shown Ponyville Square in its entirety, but wow, it's really busy here in the mornings. It is, isn't it? Now, over here Naruto. She approached a nearby board, full of paper and bulletins and the like. Naruto looked at it curiously as he looked back at Twilight. Is the bulletin board, or as some say it, the request board. Ponies post odd jobs or menial tasks here that other ponies can do if they're looking for a quick bit. Although, a lot of the requests are really more geared towards part-time employment. There's not a lot of ponies that can't just get help from their friends for the small things. Naruto gave Twilight a nod. This seemed kind of similar to the missions he did back in his own world, except they weren't divided by rank or anything. In fact, as Naruto looked at some of the requests, he became a little interested. Some of them sounded odd to him though. Looking for Manticore Tail, requesting part-time help at Sugar Cube Corner, looking for nighttime bodyguards, and searching for a lost kitten. He said some of the requests out loud. The last one made him cringe as memories of a demon-possessed cat filled his brain. He held a hoof to his head, remembering how one of his first missions as a ninja involved finding a missing cat. That little demon-possessed cat. The little rascal loves to run away from its owner, and it never caused anything but trouble for the ninja that took the job. Shaking the thoughts from his head, he looked towards Twilight. Some of these look pretty nifty, and some of them look like something for someone with my expertise. Twilight gave him a happy smile. Well, I'm glad for Naruto. I'm sure whatever request you take, you will excel at. Although, she said as she pointed a hoof at the Manticore request. Whoever placed this request must be a few books short of a stack. Manticores are pretty dangerous beings. I don't know anyone that can take one on, at least not successfully. Why? Manticores are part scorpion, part lion, and part eagle. They're very ferocious beings, very large and quite dangerous. My friends and I took one a while ago, and we got lucky it didn't turn us into Manticore Chow. So how did you defeat it? We didn't. It had a thorn in its paw. After Fluttershy took it out, it became fairly docile and just ran off. Manticores are not to be trifled with, however, she said as she attempted to rip the request off the board. Wait. Naruto stopped her from ripping the request down. How much can I get by obtaining a Manticore tail? Why do you ask? Just tell me, Twilight. Twilight was a little hesitant at first, but his curiosity had triggered her own. She looked back at the request, 300 bits. That's a lot of money. And the request is from a pony in Canterlot. Canterlot, what's that? You could say it's a town for the nobles. The royal castle is also there. I see. 300 bits sounds like a lot of money. I might be able to afford a lot of things with that. Maybe even a house. But I'm not really able to fight right now, not yet. It'll be a good idea to start with smaller jobs, use those for training and learning. The Manticore request wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Naruto thought. Naruto? Yes. Are you okay? You were spacing out a little. Twilight asked. He couldn't let Twilight know about his plan to go after the Manticore, since it would just worry the hell out of her. No, was just thinking about something anyway, he said as he placed his hoof on the Sugar Cube Corner request. From what I saw inside yesterday, it can't be that hard being a part-timer there. And it's an hourly pay of 8 bits. Sounds like good pay to me. Some money is better than none. He said in satisfaction. Twilight merely nodded. Sounds good, Naruto. Let's head on over there with the request. To say it was crowded when they entered Sugar Cube Corner would have been an understatement. It was packed full of customers wanting pastries, sweets and other assorted goods. The noise inside the store was overwhelming and the heat was unbearable, caused by both the fact that this was a bakery and having too many ponies in an enclosed space. He could make out a blue pony, with a rather unique hairdo, standing at the register. A pink pony rushed in and out of the kitchen like there was no tomorrow, carrying orders on her head. In the crowd there was a gray Pegasus with a goofy look flying around, bumping into ponies all over the room, bringing a smile to Naruto's muzzle. The pony sort of reminded him of himself when he was younger. When Naruto's attention returned to the area by the register, he saw where the help was needed. They needed someone to keep the orders together, get the right pony, the right goods, and on their way. The pony at the register was sweating as she got the orders taken care of. Naruto and Twilight eventually made their way to the register through the crowd. Yes, a strawberry cake, a dozen pastries. Yes, what can I get for you, sir? Actually, I'm here because of the request board. You're looking for a part-timer, right? Naruto said. The pony's face distorted into a look of glee as she gave him a big smile. You're here to work part-time? Oh, thanks, Celestia. You can't believe how busy it is here. I thought no one would accept it. Please, go to the back of the kitchen and talk to Pinkie Pie, she'll fill you in. I have to get these orders straightened out, she said as Naruto is pushed by the register pony. Twilight just stood there, watching as Naruto got shoved into the back, giggling at the abruptness of his disappearance. I'll see you later then, Naruto. Have fun. Twilight shouted to him, though Naruto couldn't hear her over the patron's shouts. Where's my cake? I want my pastries. I've been waiting for an hour. Yay, Naruto, you're back. We're going to have so much fun today. He didn't think he would be meeting Pinkie Pie again so soon. Part of him wished that he'd never see her again because this pony acted like she was on a sugar high all the time. He quickly looked over the kitchen. There were a fair number of ovens on one side of the room. A table in the middle that was home to many cooling pastries and other goods. On the far side of the room was much of the counter space, much of it overtaken by ingredients, bowls and mixing utensils in a haphazard mess. Pun, you say? You do realize that there are tons of people out there looking for pastry blood, right? Naruto said with a dumbfounded expression. Pinkie Pie merely smiled at him as she patted his soft tail, which he promptly flicked away from her. Oh, don't be silly. The more people, the more fun. But the more fun, the more orders I have to take. She paused for a moment, a frown creasing her face. But hey. Now that you're here, it'll be double the fun and we'll fill orders even faster, she said, quickly perking up as she rushed over to grab an apron and then rushed back to Naruto. He could have sworn she made the entire trip in under 3 seconds. This pony had way too much energy, but that wasn't always a bad thing. A lot of energy could be a good thing if channeled properly. Quickly, put this on so we can have so much fun making things together. She's underestimating the situation, she's much too carefree. Then again, I was like that when I was younger. Boundless energy, pulling pranks, doing anything I could to show people that they weren't always right about everything. No. I can't think about that right now. I have a job to do, I need the money. He placed his head under the loop of the apron and clipped it on at the back with both his hoofs. It was a plain white apron with small smudges on it, presumably from cooking ingredients. Alright, so what do I need to do first? Pinkie may have seemed to be carefree, but when it came to baking, she seemed to be able to completely focus her energy into the job. The rate at which she could keep cakes, pastries, turnovers and other baked goods coming was ridiculous. It was everything Naruto could do to keep up for the longest time, and all he had to do was give the finished goods to the waiting customers. Then there was the fact that she didn't use a timer and Naruto couldn't spot a clock in the room. Pinkie just pulled stuff out seemingly at random, but he'd never heard anything but admiration for the cooking from this place. Pinkie Pie seemed to have an ability that allowed her to catch missteps and just intuitively know how the goods were baking. Eventually he got used to the pace she maintained and soon found himself helping to prepare the batter in between orders. Once he got up to pace, he started chatting with Pinkie a little. Just how are you so good with this, Pinkie? It's like you have a sixth sense on baking. It's pretty amazing, Naruto said. She responded with an overexcited smile. Because, silly, I work here and I love to bake. Ooh. She stopped what she was doing and ran up towards Naruto as she stared at him in a creepy way. And I love to party too. Well, mostly parties that I make, but hey, I love parties. Do you love parties? Why yeah, I think I do. I haven't been to a party in a long time though, so. You haven't partied in a long time, we need to change that. I'll throw a party for tomorrow. It'll be super duper fun. And no, that's quite alright, really, but we should be. Oh, but why not? As she was pestering him to agree to a party, Naruto pointed a hoof at one of the ovens. He could see a large fat of bread pushing up against the screen of the oven. Because that cake is about to explode, Pinkie. Get it out, quickly. As if triggered by his statement, the oven exploded open, sending cake, bread and batter all over the place. Naruto just stood there, dumbfounded at the even bigger mess that the kitchen was now in. Pinkie, on the other hand, simply licked the batter off of her face. She smacked her lips a couple times and gave a frown. Too much butter, not enough sugar, she said with a giggle. She rushed off to mix up a new batch. Naruto was frozen to that spot, shocked by what he had just seen. There had been something about the way she had licked some of that batter off of her face. There was something about the manner in which she did so, freezing him in place as his cheeks flushed red. He soon got himself back to work as he remembered what he was doing here. He shook his head and went back to work, not wanting to delay anything further. Everything went smoothly for the remainder of the morning after they cleaned up the aftermath of the cake explosion. He soon found himself fairly bored as Pinky was able to keep up on much of the baking on her own. He was happy to be done with the rush, it had been more hectic than he expected. He wondered how often the guy from Ichiraku Ramen felt like that. The pony that had been at the register walked into the kitchen with a cheerful smile. "Good work, Pinkie Pie. And you too, she began, stopping abruptly as she realized she'd never got Naruto's name. My word, I'm so sorry. I put you to work without any introductions. You'll have to forgive me, it was just so busy in here," she exclaimed hurriedly. Naruto grinned as he scratched his head bashfully. "It's no problem. I'm just glad I could help. I'm Naruto. And I'm Mrs. Cake. Again, very glad you could help out in the kitchen with Pinkie Pie. Ever since my husband fell ill we've had issues getting through the startup rush in the morning. So I had to put in a request on the request board. I thought no one would come since most every pony is already busy in the morning. I'm sure you understand." "Yeah, I can, and it's no problem. I'm just glad we were able to get this out of the way." "Yes, of course," Mrs. Cake said. In response, Pinkie Pie placed an arm around Naruto's neck. "You should have seen him, Mrs. Cake. He was going nearly as fast as me with filling out all those orders, it was all like swoosh, and all wham, he's amazing," Pinkie Pie said, barely understandable with the speed she spoke. Mrs. Cake rubbed her chin as she took a good look at Naruto from head to hoof. He couldn't get used to how people kept looking at him. He couldn't look that strange, could he? Mrs. Cake just shrugged. "I see you've definitely worked hard today, Naruto," so therefore Mrs. Cake placed a small bag in his hooves, jingling slightly. "A little extra for the great help you've given us. 10 extra bits plus the 24 you earned in just a few hours, totaling 34 bits. I hope you'll work with us again sometime. You were a big help, thank you," Mrs. Cake said with a smile. Naruto merely gave a nod as he placed the bag into his jacket pocket. He took off the apron from over his head and placed it on the counter. "You bet, Mrs. Cake. If it ever gets really busy again, I'll be sure to help if I can," Naruto said with a smile. With a job well done and money in hand, Naruto left Sugar Cube Corner. Mrs. Cake said that it had only been a few hours. 3 in fact, if his maths was right. He started looking around town as he munched on a pastry that he'd received from Mrs. Cake. He heard the sounds of chatter and business going about, though he didn't see Twilight anywhere. He was getting used to the surroundings, soon he would have an understanding of where everything was. It was just a matter of exploring. He soon found himself standing in front of the request board as he wandered around town. It was about noon. It would be nice to tackle another request before he finished up for the day. More work in his attempt to make enough money for other things. The request for the Manticore tail was still there. I wonder why no one's picked up that request yet. Maybe there's no combat type ponies around. That's a little strange. But regardless, he couldn't take on a Manticore himself, at least not at the moment, if they were as vicious as Twilight made them out to be. He would need a weapon, maybe some gear to help protect him. He shook the thoughts out of his mind. The request for the missing cat was still there. He rubbed his chin, reading the request. Help wanted. Missing cat. Opalescence. Reward. 20 bits. There was a picture of the cat alongside the request. It was white and fluffy. It looked like one of those rich cats that was groomed well and given proper treatment. Thinking back, Twilight mentioned there was a town called Canterlot for the nobles. Maybe it was a noble cat. His line of thought was cut short as he finished reading the request. If you find my precious Opalescence, please deliver her to Carousel Boutique. So the request was from Rarity, the fashion pony that had fainted just from a glimpse of his outfit. Suddenly Naruto didn't really want to accept the request. But Rarity was one of Twilight's close friends, and the money wasn't something to ignore either. This would be a good opportunity, both to prove himself to Rarity and to make a little more money. This shouldn't be a problem, I'm totally experienced with cats, he exclaimed after he pounded his chest with his hoof. Although this was about as far from the truth as it could be, it helped him to just say it out loud. As Naruto entered Carousel Boutique, he found himself worrying about Rarity seeing him a second time. He didn't have a choice though, he needed to know where she'd last seen her cat. Rarity came out from the back of the store as he entered, and the bell on the door had signaled his arrival. She frowned for a moment, then seemed to recall herself and put on an awkward smile. Oh my, it's the dearie with the cute foxtail. How are you? That cheery greeting caught him off guard. Why did she frown then? Maybe it was a mixed expression, being offended by Naruto's fashion or lack thereof, but happy to see his foxtail again. Why wouldn't these ponies stop admiring his foxtail? I'm fine. I came here about your missing cat, was wondering where you saw it last. "Oh, you're here to find my precious opalescence," she said with glee. She slammed her hoofs on the counter as she looked at him, her face contorting to a display of pure glee. "Oh, I'm so happy you took my request, Naruto. I don't know what I would do without my poor, sweet fluffy opalescence. She means the world to me, you see. Ever since she ran away I've been distressed and worried. Please find her. Please." She despaired, flinging herself at Naruto, her hooves flying around his neck. He stumbled backwards, catching a whiff of her shampoo as she hugged him tightly, to the point at which he couldn't breathe. Alright. I can't breathe, Rarity." Rarity obliged, letting go of his neck and backing up a few paces, grinning sheepishly. "Now, where was it that you last saw opalescence? This is more trouble than it's worth." An hour had passed since he'd left Rarity's. The last time she'd seen her cat was in her boutique, then she said that it must have wandered somewhere in town, most likely around Ponyville Square, so that's where he was going to start. He looked around the marketplace, the request board, and even under a couple of boxes and barrels, but there was no sign of the cat. How can something so white and fluffy be so hard to find? As he searched around he heard the sound of a hammer on metal. The sound led his eyes towards a small little shop. He peered inside, finding a black stallion with a gray horn. His fur looked a bit puffed out and he had a couple of scars on his face. A picture of a hammer and an anvil was on the stallion's butt. Naruto kept wondering what was with the pictures. Then he noticed a furnace and anvil within the store. There's a blacksmith here in Ponyville. He wondered out loud. He could see an array of weapons and armor on display, ranging from long swords to daggers to small kitchen knives and tools requiring a craftsman's touch. The black stallion looked up at him, not showing much emotion in his voice. "You here, Talokur Tabai?" he said in a deep and grisly voice. Naruto merely shook his head. "I'm just here looking. I didn't know a blacksmith existed here in Ponyville," Naruto said. The blacksmith just shrugged as he went back to smacking his hammer against the anvil. Naruto looked closely at the blacksmith's work and realized he was using unicorn magic to move the hammer and hold the blade in place. The blacksmith looked up a few moments later as he realized Naruto wasn't leaving. Not many people need weapons these days, or armor for that matter. Some say there isn't enough bloodshed to warrant it. The blacksmith began to say, Naruto listening intently. "There hasn't been a war in a very long time. You have these royal soldiers from time to time, passing by. But they seem to be mostly for show. Most ponies just buy weapons and armor as collection items and not for practical use. It's an insult to a blacksmith's pride." Naruto saw some wisdom in the blacksmith's words. "Peace is a good thing to have though, right?" "Of course it is, but you have all these lollygaggers who all talk about being all rich with their fancy words of etiquette. You would think some ponies would be cautious nowadays. No one has a mind for war, but instead they have a mind of being show-offs." The blacksmith gave a bored stare at Naruto. "But that's not the point. The point is my skill is going to waste. So why do you keep doing the things you do?" "I gotta make a living somehow. Selling weapons is what keeps me fed these days," the blacksmith said. As he moved his head from side to side, relieving the stiffness from his neck, he looked at Naruto. "So, you interested in buying something to show off with?" the blacksmith asked. Actually, now that Naruto thought about it, this opportunity right here was perfect. If he was going to be hunting for a manticore, he would need a weapon or two. He couldn't chop something off with his bare hands after all. "Actually, I was hoping to buy a weapon for hunting purposes," Naruto asked. The blacksmith raised a brow. "Hunting what, bunny rabbits?" the blacksmith said with a chuckle. "A manticore," Naruto said without hesitation. The blacksmith went wide-eyed at Naruto's response before chuckling heartily. "A manticore, heh, that's a good one, Philly. You're 10 years too young to be hunting big game like that," he said as he kept on laughing. "But fine, I'll humor you. Why do you want to fight a beast like a manticore?" "It's a request on the request board. There's a reward for getting a manticore tail," Naruto said. This made the blacksmith laugh even more. "Philly, there's no way you can take on such a beast. Most of them tend to be 10 to 15 hoofs tall, with monstrous claws and a ferocious bite. Not to mention the scorpion tail. You'd be a dead colt before you could say, 'Oh no, I'm dead.'" "I've probably fought worse," Naruto retorted. "Oh really, what have you fought before?" "I've fought giant toads, giant snakes, and I've even had to fight monstrous abominations that were too distorted to even let live in the world." The unicorn blacksmith just lost all control, stopping his work as he held his gut in laughter. Naruto was getting annoyed at the black unicorn not believing him. While the blacksmith flailed about in his laughter, he slammed his hoof on a nearby barrel. Something white jumped out. Naruto's eyes widened as he noticed that it had white ears and white fluffy fur, though covered in black spots, likely from the smithy materials. "Rarity's cat, it's here," Naruto shouted. The blacksmith stopped laughing as he saw what Naruto was talking about. "What in Equestria is a cat doing in my material barrel?" Startled by the shouting, Opalescence ran off. Naruto widened his stance as the cat bounded towards the door. "Oh no, you don't, you puff of fur." Naruto was suddenly across the room with the cat in his teeth. The blacksmith could only stare, wide-eyed and slack-jawed, at the pony that had just seemingly teleported to the doorway. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. Or rather what he hadn't. The pony's speed was amazing. Naruto walked back towards the blacksmith with teeth full of fur. "Now do you believe me?" The blacksmith blinked a couple of times as he gave a smile. "You've got speed, Philly, but that doesn't mean you have combat experience," he said. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. "Well anyway, it was nice talking with you. But right now, I have a reward to collect for this troublesome cat," Naruto said. He was about to walk away until a voice from behind him shouted out. "Hey, wait a sec, Philly." Naruto looked back to see the blacksmith walking towards him. What he said gave Naruto a smile that spread across his entire muzzle. "The name's Blackie. Philly, you make me laugh. You pay the bits and I'll make you whatever manticore fighting weapon you like." With his business at the blacksmith's concluded and a ball of fur in his mouth, Naruto headed back towards Carousel Boutique. It didn't take him long to reach as it was only a short walk away. The only issue he had on the way there was that Opalescence was constantly trying to scratch his nose or any other part the cat could manage to reach. Especially that one time he'd sneezed in response to the black soot the cat was covered in. She even managed to escape his mouth a time or two, but they managed to reach the boutique without any substantial problems. As he entered the building with a bundle of fur in his mouth, he placed the cat down on the nearby counter. "Rarity, are you in here? I found a pulsus however you pronounce her name," he called out. Naruto caught the cat sneaking towards the door, promptly using his tail to hold the cat in place. The cat struggled as it shrieked wildly. Rarity's head popped out from the stairs. "Oh dear, what is all of this noise, Opalescence?" She screamed in delight as she discovered the creature that was being held down by Naruto's tail. She rushed towards the cat as Naruto just kept it in place. The cat stopped for a moment as its owner stepped into view before looking the other way in disgust. Rarity furrowed her brow towards Naruto. "Why are you holding my cat down with your tail? It's trying to get away from this building. I think it still has a grudge against you, Rarity." "Nonsense, my cat is of high class and I know Opalescence loves me," she said as she nuzzled her cat. "Don't you, Opalescence?" In response, the cat took a swipe at Rarity's nose. Rarity immediately reacted, managing to get away without a scratch. She squinted her eyes as she ignited the horn. "Naruto, release her. I'll take care of her." Naruto gave a nod as he lifted his tail away from the cat. It tried to take the opportunity to flee, but a purple aura quickly surrounded the cat, lifting it off the ground. Naruto stood in awe of Rarity's magic. As Opalescence was suspended in midair, Rarity noticed that it was covered in black powder. "My word, Naruto, how did my cat get all dirty with all the soot?" "It was hiding at the blacksmith shop in a nearby barrel. I guess she got into some materials and she ended up like this," Naruto guessed. Rarity replied with a small nod. Using her magic to hold the cat in place, she went over to a nearby cabinet, opened a drawer and withdrew a small pouch that jingled in her grasp. She walked back over to Naruto with a bag in her mouth before placing it on the counter. "There's your pay, Naruto. And thank you for finding my cat. I would have found her myself, but there was just so much work to be done and I just didn't want to dirty myself finding her." "You don't like getting dirty?" "Not at all, a lady needs to."